Chapter 789. Jiang Luoxia? The black ghost from the black-white palace laughed and shook his head gently. He seemed to be very helpless about this. Hongye, you want to find Jiang Luoxia to scare me? Jiang Luoxia. This was such a familiar name for Hongye and the retrograde leaf. Unfortunately, this name was far away from them. Hongye let out a long sigh in his heart. If Jiang Gu was still alive, with the help of Tianqing School, today's difficulties would definitely be overcome. The black-white palace was very strong, but Tianqing School was not weak either. There was not much difference between the two. As long as Jiang Xiu was strong enough to support him, Hongye believed that the black-white palace would not dare to really go to war with Tianqing School for the sake of eliminating the root of the problem. According to Jiang Xiu's strong character, he would not allow others to touch his friends. If Jiang Gu were alive, how could the black-white palace be so presumptuous? Hongye roared angrily. The anger in his heart was already uncontrollable. The black-white palace had bullied him too much. The black ghost laughed heartily again. So what if Jiang Luoxia is alive? Can the Tianqing mirror compare with my black and white world? The next moment his arm moved and became thicker out of thin air. In the rolling layers of black gas, he punched at Hongye in front of him. There was a loud bang. The black ghost's fist passed through the void. Immediately, an indescribable force surged out. The void was distorted, and time seemed to have stopped. Only the fist force rushed over. Hongye was shocked. He raised his sword and wanted to fight back, but this movement triggered his previous injury. His movements were too slow. A black streamer came out from the side. Cut! Boom! There was a crisp sound of breaking ice. A giant sword slashed fiercely on the fist force. The giant sword was huge, and the runes on it were ancient. It was the giant sword of the retrograde leaf. In the end he still made a move. When the sword pierced through the fist force, the fist shadow was broken and turned into a cloud of smoke in the sky, disappearing without a trace. Retrograde Leaf's face froze, revealing a pained expression. However, he did not stop. He shook his sleeves and waved the giant sword again. Immediately, dense black crystal lights shot out. The power was even more powerful than the previous sword attack. At the same time, scales suddenly appeared on his body. Instantly, the crisp sound of clanking could be heard. Black Ghost's Lin family suddenly shone with a black light and then dimmed. The surface of the scale armor was covered with dense bean-like pits. Retrograde Leaf's movements were as smooth as flowing water. He tossed his great sword into the air and quickly formed a sword seal with his hands. So, in the sharp piercing of the air, the giant sword immediately shone in black crystal light, turning into a graceful flying out. With just a flash, it pierced through the black ghost. Bang! Killed. Hongye and his disciples were all shocked. If they killed Black Ghost, the black-white palace would lose its leader, and they would be defeated. Die. Retrograde Leaf's aura was like a rainbow as he roared angrily. Palace Master. The people of the black-white palace were also shocked by this sudden scene. They firmly had the upper hand and had formed a crushing momentum. How could they be killed all of a sudden? After the giant sword passed through, everyone saw a strange scene. The giant sword passed through, but it left a shadow of the giant sword in front of Black Ghost. It was like a stack of paper twisted together inch by inch. Weak and powerless. This is... Retrograde Leaf's eyes suddenly widened and then dimmed. The real sword seal did not pierce through Black Ghost. Only the sword passed through. For a celestial king, ordinary sword wounds could be healed in the next moment. It was impossible to hurt him at all. The sword seal was broken. It was broken. Whispers were heard everywhere, and Retrograde Leaf's dimmed face showed a trace of pain. This was his weakness, his fatal weakness, and it was exposed more completely. Haha. Black Ghost laughed. Retrograde Leaf, I know that you have a good relationship with Hongye, and will definitely come to your rescue. I have already thoroughly studied your sword seal. Die. Looking at the shadow of the fist falling from the sky, Retrograde Leaf's sword seal changed again, and the momentum of this sword was completely exhausted. The sword seal was broken, and the attack was ineffective. Then what was the point of resisting the opponent's attack? It was just a dying struggle. After the shadow of the fist on the opposite side blurred, there was a puff, and a fist-shaped dent appeared on Retrograde Leaf's chest. It was 2 or 3 centimeters deep. Puff, Retrograde Leaf spat out another mouthful of blood, and was sent flying backward. Then, he saw the black shadow on the opposite side chasing after him in a flash. When he raised his head again, his head was already under Black Ghost's grasp. Retrograde Leaf knelt on the ground on one knee and was captured. Retrograde Leaf. State Master. Everyone exclaimed. The whole process was as fast as lightning, and it was over in a breath. Black Ghost, who captured Retrograde Leaf, laughed loudly. It was enough to make him proud that he was able to take down an Celestial King one-on-one. His gaze was even more indescribably arrogant. The Master of the Bitter Realm is nothing more than this. Winning was winning, but he still had to scold the opponent. Retrograde Leaf's face was ashen. He had nothing to say. If it weren't for the flaw in the sword seal, he would never have lost. He firmly believed that he had the power to fight Black Ghost. Even if Black Ghost was stronger than him, it was limited. He would never have lost so miserably. Ha ha ha. Extinguish the sovereignty of this palace. The 2 strongest people were defeated in his hands. In his opinion, the remaining people had no combat power at all. He could kill them all with a flick of his finger. Yes. Retrograde Leaf was silent. He just closed his eyes in pain and stopped struggling. He would die if he moved. But even if he didn't die, his heart was already dead. First, he was betrayed by his disciple because of the flaw in the sword seal. Now he was humiliated like this. He had nothing left to live for. Jiangge, oh Jiangge. Hongya felt sorry for his old friend. He stood up for him and even lost his dignity and life. He was also full of resentment. If Jiang Luoxia hadn't found the flaw in his sword seal, Retrograde Leaf wouldn't have ended up like this. Are you calling for Jiang Luoxia's soul? Even if Jiang Luoxia crawls out of the ground now, what can he do to me? Black Ghost waved his hands wildly. Is that so? Suddenly, an abrupt voice came from outside the villa. Along with this voice, a figure appeared in front of everyone. The person who came had an extraordinary aura. He looked like a king. It's him. He's the person who attacked us sneakily just now, Old Seven said. Everyone present looked at Jiang Xiao, but everyone recognized him. Hongya just glanced at him and gave up. It didn't matter if it was a sneak attack or not. He didn't recognize that the person in front of him was actually his old friend from Tianqing School, who had been close to him for many years. Retrograde Leaf looked up and was slightly surprised. Jiang Xiao, why are you here? Jiang Xiao said. I was passing by and didn't see you. Your old servant said you came to Crybaby's place, so I came to join in the fun. I didn't expect it to be so lively. Crybaby. This was Jiang Luoxia's nickname for Hongya. Hongya didn't really like to cry. On the contrary, he didn't know why either. He was born without tearful eyes and couldn't shed a single tear. Without tear ducts, the eyes would be very dry. After a long time, the eyes would hurt. Therefore, Hongya's eyes were always red and bloodshot. It was as if he had pink eye disease. Why are you? Hongya felt very strange. In this world, only Jiang Xiao would call him that. Jiang Xiao smiled faintly. What? You don't recognize me? Not only Hongya, but even Retrograde Leaf was confused. They didn't know why Jiang Xiao. Retrograde Leaf stared at Jiang Xiao. From the first time he saw Jiang Xiao, he felt that Jiang Xiao was similar to Jiang Luoxia. However, his initial impression was changed by later experiences. Now Jiang Xiao had changed even more. He was full of the aura of a god. Don't tell me you. Jiang Xiao said. Retrograde Leaf, do you remember when I saved you in the cave? You asked me what my relationship with Jiang Luoxia was. Don't tell me, Jiang Xiao said. That's right. Jiang Xiao is Jiang Luoxia. What? Retrograde Leaf was shocked. Hongya's eyes widened. You are Jiangge. Similar. Ha ha ha, now that you mention it, it really is similar. Hongya laughed in the end. Jiang Xiao's eyes suddenly turned cold. You and I can catch up later. Let me get rid of these flies first. Chapter 790. Are you Jiang Luoxia? Every era had its own powerhouse, and the people of every era thought that the powerhouse of their era was the strongest. Although Jiang Xiao was very famous, Black Ghost of the Black-White Palace was very disdainful of Jiang Xiu. He thought that the people of the world overestimated Jiang Xiu because there were no real geniuses in this era. Jiang Xiu was just the best among the dwarves. That's right, I am Jiang Luoxia. Black Ghost looked up and down and sneered. I have heard that the sect master of Tianqing School, Jiang Luoxia, is famous. Today, I see that you are just SOSO. Why? Do you want to get involved in this mess? Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't cause trouble for yourself. The Black-White Palace is not something you can provoke. After all, Jiang Luoxia was too famous. Although Black Ghost looked down on him, he also knew that it was not easy to keep such a king-level powerhouse. At least 4 of them were needed. 6 of them came out at once. Like him, they were all wearing black cloaks and strange white masks. Judging from their auras, they were all immortal kings. They surrounded Jiang Xiu and trapped him. Jiang Xiu glanced around, and his gaze passed by the 7 immortal kings. Looking at their arrogant looks, he sneered. Why? Do you want to bully me with numbers? Black Ghost smiled proudly. He was not ashamed at all. Instead, he was proud. So what? Yes, you want to bully me with numbers. Retrograde Leaf and Hongya's faces darkened. Jiang Xiu came a little late. If they were not injured, a total of 3 immortal kings and Jiang Xiu's super strength would have a chance of winning. Jiang Gu, you came alone? Jiang Luoxia was backed by Tianqing School. As everyone knew, Tianqing School had 13 immortal kings. It was easy for him to bring a few of them here. He didn't need many. If he called 2 more, he should be able to deal with it. What a pity. Jiang Xiu looked at Black Ghost and laughed. You want to compete with me in terms of numbers? I really don't want to bully you, but since you've made such a request, I can only satisfy you. Come out. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a loud bang and the world changed. Everyone felt an inexplicable sense of trepidation at this moment. They felt as if something extremely terrifying was about to happen. More than a dozen divine Tao lights descended from the sky. Each divine Tao light transformed into a person. They were the people that Jiang Xiu had killed in the Consonance Pavilion. Moreover, each of them was a god king. As soon as these people appeared, the 7 immortal kings of the Black-White Palace were stunned on the spot. On the other hand, the people of the Hongya Villa all cheered. They were going crazy. With over a dozen god kings, why would they be afraid of 7 of you? The situation had changed. The tables had turned in an instant. From being absolutely suppressed, they had suddenly become the bullies. They were competing in terms of numbers. However, before their joy could end, something even more explosive came. Jiang Xiu shouted, "Come out!" More than a dozen divine Tao lights descended from the sky. More than a dozen divine Tao realm cultivators appeared. When these people came out, there were 30 of them in total. 30 god kings lined up behind Jiang Xiu. That aura, that feeling. It was explosive. Whoa! The people of the Hongya Villa all shouted excitedly. They were so excited that they had goosebumps all over their bodies. As expected of the sect leader of the Tianqing School. What a big move. The appearance of more than a dozen god kings was already enough to scare people to death. In the end, another dozen god kings appeared. The Retrograde Leaf and Hongya both looked excited. They were going to win. Jiang Luoxia was still Jiang Luoxia after all. Come out! Jiang Xiu shouted again. More than a dozen god kings appeared. Come out! Come out! Come out for me! They were all stunned. Looking at the human heads in the field, they were all people. They were all god kings. There were dozens of them. Dozens of god kings. When gangsters were fighting on the street, dozens of them would be scared to death. One could imagine the aura of dozens of god kings. But it wasn't over yet. Come out! Come out! There were more than 100 of them. And the last dozen god kings of Jiang Luoxia's divine Tao lights were so powerful that it was suffocating. They were the old pavilion master, the second pavilion master, peak-level god kings who had fused 6 and 7 Tao realms. On the opposite side, the 7 god kings of the Black-White Palace looked as if they had been struck by lightning. They looked as if they had lost their parents. More than 100 god kings. Didn't they say they wanted less than 10 people? Didn't they say it would be 7 against 1? How could they be so shameless? The people of Hongya Villa behind them were also stunned. They knew that Jiang Xiu had a lot of connections. He was the dignified sect master of Tianqing School and had many friends. Everyone admired his genius and was willing to help him and give him face. But calling more than 100 god kings in one go was really a bit too much. What do you think? Jiang Xiu looked indifferently at Black Ghost, the palace master of the Black-White Palace. Didn't you want to compete in numbers? Then let's see who has more people. Gulp. Black Ghost swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. Sect leader Jiang, is there some kind of misunderstanding? Jiang Xiu didn't speak. Hongya spat and said, Black Ghost, you are also one of the palace masters of the Black-White Palace. How can you be so shameless? Didn't you want to destroy my Hongya villa just now? You also wanted to besiege Jiangge. How can it be a misunderstanding now? Black Ghost's face was covered by a mask at the moment. Otherwise, it would be extremely ugly. Misunderstanding. It is indeed a misunderstanding. The Black-White Palace was very mysterious. All the disciples liked to cover their faces and wear masks with green faces and fangs, which gave people a feeling of cruelty and ruthlessness. Misunderstanding. It was also a misunderstanding that I destroyed your Black-White Palace. If Jiang Xiu had said such a thing just now, Black Ghost wouldn't have believed it. But now, he was surrounded by hundreds of god kings. He had no choice but to believe it. In the face of such power, he believed that no sect in the world would dare to go against Jiang Xiu. Sect Master Jiang, this is an old grudge between the Black-White Palace and the Hongya Villa. It is not worthwhile for you to interfere. Let's forget about today's matter. What do you think? From now on, the grudge between the Black-White Palace and the Hongya Villa will be written off. Hongya was slightly moved. His power was too weak now. He didn't have the strength to contend with the other party. The reason why the Hongya Villa was in such a secluded place and wasn't well known in the immortal martial continent was because he was afraid that the Black-White Palace would know about it. If this grudge could be resolved, then the Hongya Villa could develop without restraint. This was something he had always wanted. Hongya, what do you think? Black Ghost asked Hongya. Hongya really wanted to answer. With Jiang Luoxia here, he didn't have the qualifications to do so. It was better to let Jiang Luoxia have the final say. Jiang Xiu looked at Black Ghost with cold eyes. I heard from afar that your Black-White realm is far stronger than my heavenly mirror. If you can really defeat me today, then I will let you go. Black Ghost was happy to hear this. Then, you said it yourself. So many people here can testify. As the sect master of the Tianqing School, you can't go back on your words. Jiang Xiu sneered. Of course not. Then I won't be polite. As soon as he finished speaking, black and white smoke clouds swept out from Black Ghost's body. They wrapped around Jiang Xiu like dragons and snakes. While Jiang Xiu wasn't paying attention, he wanted to take down Jiang Xiu. Humph. Jiang Xiu sneered. Clay chickens and pottery dogs. Perhaps in the past, Jiang Xiu would be very curious about how powerful the Black-White realm was, since it could support the Black-White Palace and stand for hundreds of thousands of years. But he had emptied the Lingxi Pavilion, and of course, the so-called Black-White realm was indispensable. But a strange scene still appeared. Black Ghost's figure became white on the left and black on the right, as if there were two people, one in the mirror, and the other outside the mirror. Could this be the Black-White realm? Then he saw the black and white fist shadows at the same time, one positive and one negative, one black and one white. It was really strange. However, Jiang Xiu wasn't interested in studying it. He raised his hand slightly, and without looking, he shot out a knife toward the distant sky. An inch of light slid across the sky. Since it was the Black-White realm, it must be related to time and space. And this one was the one that crossed time and space. At the same time, it brought with it a touch of blood, and at the same time, it erupted with unparalleled power. The immortal kings standing behind Black Ghost screamed and flew backward like minions. They died tragically on the spot. Their bodies were shot in the head by the light of the knife. Black Ghost also fell into a pool of blood. Under the mask, his eyes were wide open. Even before he died, he didn't understand how Jiang Xiu's flying knife could be so powerful. They're all dead. Seeing this scene, Hongya and Retrograde Leaf were also stunned. 7 immortal kings were all killed by Jiang Xiu with one knife? This was cheating. Chapter 791. How is this possible? Hongye and Retrograde Leaf's eyes bulged when they saw Jiang Xiu kill the 7 immortal kings with one strike. 4 immortal kings needed to work together to kill an immortal king. This was a deep-rooted thought, but Jiang Xiu completely overturned this point. This scene had a huge impact on Shuangye's vision and thinking. We haven't seen each other for a few decades, but Jiang Gu is actually this strong. Hongye and Retrograde Leaf sighed in their hearts after recovering from their shock. They could still catch up to Jiang Xiu in the past, but now they couldn't see him at all. Jiang Xiu's strength was too strong. Both of them had been defeated by Black Ghost. However, Black Ghost and his 6 subordinates, the Immortal Kings, had not been able to withstand a single strike from Jiang Xiu. Hongye's gaze towards Jiang Xiu changed again and again. If you can beat them, then you want to destroy their entire village. If you can't beat them, then you say it's a misunderstanding. How can there be such a good thing in this world? Jiang Xiu looked at the corpses on the ground with disdain. Lei Qianqiu. He called out to the old pavilion master. Your subordinate is here. Jiang Xiu looked at him. You should know where the black-white twin palaces are, right? Bring a few people with you. I want this sect to be erased from the immortal martial continent. Understood. After speaking, the old pavilion master brought a few people with him, and turned into a divine light and left. This old man's aura is so strong. Shuangyi noticed that the old pavilion master's aura was so strong that it seemed to be above the immortal king realm. This person should be very close to the emperor realm. Jiangge. Hongye said, today. Jiang Xiu waved his hand and didn't let him continue. It was too polite for friends to say such things. In the past, Jiang Xiu would stay for a few days when he came, and the other party would treat him with good food and wine. Crybaby, from now on, your Hongye villa doesn't have to worry about the revenge of the Black-White Palace. You can develop in peace. Jiang Xiu knew that Hongye was often on tenterhooks because of this matter. However, the Tianqing school in the past was not as strong as the Black-White Palace in terms of ranking. Jiang Xiu didn't dare to use Tianqing school to compete with the Black-White Palace. Therefore, he was powerless even if he wanted to. But today, he had helped his old friend achieve his goal. Haha, yes. Hongye laughed loudly. Great, really great. I feel as if the shackles on my body have been removed. I feel relaxed. Hongye Villa was happy, but Retrograde Leaf looked at Jiang Xiu with a strange gaze. He had fallen to this point because Jiang Luoxia was the culprit. However, Jiang Luoxia's incarnation of Jiang Xiu saved him. The two of them even formed a friendship. Facing Jiang Xiu, his feelings were very complicated. Jiang Xiu opened his hand. The second pavilion master took out a book and placed it in Jiang Xiu's palm. Retrograde Leaf, this is the complete version of the Bitter Sword Arrogance. What? Retrograde Leaf's eyes widened. The Bitter Sword Arrogance had been lost for a long time. It was said that the Bitter Sword Arrogance was formed by this sword technique. How did you get it? Jiang Xiu said. Don't worry about that. I promised you that I would help you repair your sword technique. I'll give you this sword technique. I believe it should be enough to make up for it. Of course. Retrograde Leaf was a little embarrassed. It was his sword technique that had a problem. It was just that the other party saw through it. In reality, he couldn't blame Jiang Xiu. It was just that this problem was magnified, causing Retrograde Leaf to suffer a disastrous decline. He took the book and immediately flipped through it. As for the 7 immortal kings who had died on the ground, although Jiang Xiu knew that if he conferred godhood, he would be able to accumulate merit through the God-sealing monument. However, Jiang Xiu really didn't care about these unimportant characters. According to what Jiang Xiu saw when he entered the Great Void from Earth, the number of deity positions on the God-sealing tablet was definitely limited. He didn't want to benefit these people. Jiangge, please come in quickly. There are also the immortal kings. Hongye Mountain Villa held a banquet to entertain Jiang Xiu. Coming to this place again, Jiang Xiu really felt as if a lifetime had passed. Actually, he hadn't left for long. Sometimes he wouldn't come to Hongye Mountain Villa for more than 10 years, or even dozens of years. But this time, his state of mind was completely different. However, it wasn't autumn yet. The maple leaves hadn't scattered all over the sky, but looking around the valley, it was still a fiery red. The mountain was very quiet. As he walked, he smelled the fragrance of the trees and the pleasant majestic wind unique to the mountain. Jiang Xiu's heart was moved. At this moment, he truly felt his existence. The dazzling red color was so bright that it moved one's heart. If it was another emotional person, he might have wanted to cry. Before Jiang Xiu came here for the first time, he always felt that he didn't fit in with the immortal martial continent. He felt that he should belong to Earth. But when he set foot in this place, he truly felt his existence. He indeed belonged to Earth, but he also belonged to the immortal martial continent. He was both Jiang Xiu and Jiang Luoxia. From then on, whenever he thought of Earth, he would come here. As long as he came here, the things that happened on Earth would appear in his mind even more clearly. It made him recall the scenes of that time, as well as his state of mind at that time. Perhaps this was the so-called moving by the scenery. Jianggu, you haven't been here for a long time. Have there been any changes here? Hongya followed beside him. No, it's still the same. Jiang Xiu answered absent-mindedly. He thought back to his parents who were far away on Earth. He didn't know how Earth was doing now, and how much time had passed. What's wrong? Jianggu seems to have something on his mind. Jiang Xiu seemed to feel something. He looked up and saw a fiery red maple leaf falling from a tree. It fluttered and finally fell to the ground. In a few months, it would blend into the ground. Jiang Xiu sighed and said, "Fallen leaves return to their roots. I think it's time for me to go back. Problems should be solved where they came from." Go back. It's only been a few days, and Jianggu is going back to Tianqing school? Jiang Xiu lightly shook his head, but didn't continue speaking. How's the retrograde leaf? Hongya said. He's returned to the bitter realm. He can't wait to go back. He's already giving you face. Otherwise he would have left on the same day. Who doesn't hurry back to seclusion with an emperor-level cultivation method? He probably won't come out for a few decades. Jiang Xiu smiled. He had finally settled this problem. They're back. I should go too. Dozens of divine lights flew from the sky and landed in front of Jiang Xiu. It was the old pavilion master and his group. With their cultivation, destroying the black and white palaces was a piece of cake. Fortunately, we didn't disappoint. The black and white palaces have been destroyed. Not a single one is left alive. Jiang Xiu nodded slightly. All right, let's go back to Tianqing school. A few days later, Jiang Xiu returned to Tianqing school. The sect once again resounded. They saw Jiang Xiu return with more than 100 divine kings. It was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The elder of law enforcement, Shui Wuyao, and the others were once again stunned. Last time, he tricked 3 celestial kings and 1 celestial king-level demon to come back. Well, this time he directly brought back more than 100 divine kings. You can't play like this. Greetings, sect master. Jiang Xiu walked towards the sect master's supreme throne in his great hall. Forget it. Before he sat on the throne, he turned around and said, I want to rebuild the spiritual cultivation peak. In the future, many divine kings will gather at the spiritual cultivation peak. The Tianqing school will be divided into the divine division and the celestial division. The 2 divisions will be separated, but at the same time, they will be closely integrated. We obey the sect master's decree. We obey the sect master's decree. From the elders to the disciples, they were all excited and shouted in unison. After Jiang Xiu regained control of the Tianqing school rapidly grew stronger. Not only did they destroy their arch-enemy, the Taihua sect, but they also welcomed so many powerful reinforcements. In the past, the Tianqing school was known as the 13 Celestial Kings. Now it was known as the Sect of 100 Kings. It was difficult to surpass such a force in the entire immortal martial continent. Some disciples even shouted that it was the #1 sect in the world. In the Great Hall, there was a sand table with all the sects in Qingzhou on it. Jiang Xiu strode down and said, Jianyi, lead the disciples of the sect and a few celestial kings. Gather all the sects under your banner. Jianyi said, Master wants to unify Qingzhou. Jiang Xiu nodded slightly. His true goal was not to unify Qingzhou, but to accumulate merit for the God-sealing monument. Remember, only kill the sect master. Jian Yi was a little confused, but he naturally understood what his master had instructed him to do. Jiang Xiu did not care. Some of the sect masters were not even celestial kings. As long as it was a slightly larger sect, he would confer the title of God and use it to control the sect. If there were no accidents, this could expand his influence and increase the merit of the God-sealing monument. Chapter 792. In the following days, the Tianqing school conquered the entire Qingzhou like a gust of wind sweeping away fallen leaves, including the sects that could compete with the Tianqing school in the past. Just as Jiang Xiu had expected, after conferring the sect masters of these sects as gods, the God-sealing monument grew stronger. These people believed in Jiang Xiu, and the disciples believed in them. Qingzhou became an area controlled by a god. Qingzhou was not small, so the growth of merit was not small. Faintly, a faint yellow light appeared on the God-sealing monument. If there was no accident, this should be the light of merit. Jiang Xiu had seen it in an ancient book before. The power of merit was one of the strongest powers. It was far above some of the so-called laws and great Daos. It was another existence of a higher level. Master, the Heavenly Expanse sect, the Formless sect, the Ghost Change sect. Jianyi returned to the sect and reported the sects that he had subdued to Jiang Xiu. In fact, there was no need for him to report. Jiang Xiu already knew that all the sect masters of the major sects were on his God-sealing monument. Qingzhou is now completely under master's control. The elders and disciples below shouted in unison. Congratulations, sect master. Congratulations. It was as if Jiang Xiu had unified the martial arts world. In fact, this was even more thorough than that. Jiang Xiu did not rule Qingzhou. Instead, he became the godly emperor that everyone in Qingzhou worshipped. Next, the spiritual state. The people below looked at each other, but then they felt a wave of excitement. Not only did the sect master rule Qingzhou, where the Tianqing school was located, but he also wanted to rule the nearby spiritual state. It seemed that he had the ambition to dominate the continent. They were wrong. Everything Jiang Xiu was doing now was to prepare for his return to Earth. Putting aside the Great Fate technique, he had to perfect the God-sealing technique. Right now, he was just short of the God-sealing monument. Since this method was useful, he would continue. He would only stop when the God seats on the God-sealing monument were full. Before that, he would boldly advance. Start with the major sections. Put aside the sects under the control of the major sects. Understood. Following which, Jianyi led the God Kings out. As for Shui Wuyao, she didn't want to be left out, so she went out as well. Jiang Xiu's train of thought should be correct. The bigger the sect, the more subordinate sects there were, and the more people involved, the more merits one would obtain. With the power of the Lingxi Pavilion and the Tianqing school, even the major sects in the spiritual state were helpless against such a powerful force. However, the Tianqing school's rapid expansion caused great chaos in the spiritual state. Many people tried to resist and even formed a line, but their efforts were in vain. One after another, sect master immortal kings ascended onto Jiang Xiu's God-sealing monument, becoming the immortal kings that he conferred upon them. In less than 3 months, the entire spiritual state was under the control of Tianqing school. The next state, Yin state. Since the God seat on the God seal monument was still empty, Jiang Xiu naturally wouldn't stop. He wanted to continuously expand the influence of God cultivation and accumulate enough merit. Next, Wind state. The expansion of the territory was very fast. 1.5 years later, the Tianqing school had unified the 9 states, 13 territories for seas and 7 wastelands, almost taking over the entire immortal martial continent. Of course, Jiang Xiu only went to places with large populations. Some were too secluded and remote, so he gave up on them. There was no need to waste energy on them, and the merit points wouldn't increase by much. At this moment, when he looked at the God-sealing stele again, he saw that it was filled with densely packed names, and the power of virtue of this God-sealing stele was no longer the same as it was in the past. Jiang Xiu also discovered that as time passed and the path of God became more popular, the number of God cultivators gradually increased, and the merit points on the God Seal monument also increased. However, there didn't seem to be anyone online. One had to know that this was the majority of the people on the immortal martial continent. If there were no accidents, there shouldn't be any upper immortals. As for how powerful it was, Jiang Xiu didn't know. However, Jiang Xiu really couldn't make the God Seal monument grow like a geyser. Only by enduring for thousands or even tens of thousands of years would the divine seal steel undergo another qualitative improvement. However, Jiang Xiu could not wait that long. The divine seal steel was now completely different from before. It shone with a golden light, and its original appearance was completely covered by the light of virtue. Master. Jianni had been busy for a while. Although he had the help of the other sect masters, he was really tired. Jianni, Master has to leave. Jianni was shocked. Leave? Where is Master going? Right now, the entire immortal martial continent was under the control of Tianqing School. And Jiang Xiu was the most powerful person in history. Where else could he go? Jiang Xiu said, Earth Master's hometown. Master, you're leaving? Jiang Xiu nodded heavily. Fallen leaves return to their roots. Where the origin is, it should be where the origin is. Master has to find my own origin in order to complete the destruction of the origin. Therefore, I must go back. At that time, Jiang Xiu had given Jianni a seat on earth. Let this disciple accompany Master. However, Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, There's no need. I don't know what my future will be like when I return. It will be very inconvenient for you to follow me. Moreover, the Heaven Motion sect controls the world and all sects submit to them. There are still many things you need to do. Jianni lowered his head. Master, I'm afraid I won't do well. Facing the world's heroes, many of them were Jiang Xiu's seniors. Even Jiang Luoxia back then might not be able to suppress them, let alone Jianni. He was obviously under a lot of pressure. Jiang Xiu said, Don't worry. As long as you believe in yourself, you can believe in yourself. My big brother sect leader, what did you say to your disciple? The gay-sounding Shui Wuyao walked in from outside. Hearing his voice, Jiang Xiu felt goosebumps all over his body. He actually called him big brother sect leader. I called you here to ask you to help my disciple. Shui Wuyao said. Do you still need my help? Right now, the entire immortal martial continent has been unified by you. You've become an unprecedented divine emperor. Who would dare to offend your disciple? Jiang Xiu said. I'm leaving. Jianni is still a junior, and his cultivation is not enough. You should help him a little more. Leaving? Jiang Xiu said, leaving for a while. His gaze was a little dim. Even he didn't know how long the so-called leaving for a while was. But this time, the opponents he would face could threaten his life. Back then, he had left Earth disheartened. Now he had to go back again. His heart was a little reluctant, but when he thought of his parents, he still looked forward to it. Don't worry and go. I'll look after the sect. Shui Wuyao finally said something reasonable. Jiang Xiu only knew that he had to go back to the immortal martial continent from Earth. He had never gone back to Earth from the immortal martial continent. That day, Jiang Xiu set off. He rushed into the sky and entered outer space. According to his memories, when he arrived at the gate of Earth, he waited for the space phenomenon. Therefore, this time he had to wait for the space phenomenon. This time his luck was a little bad. He had to wait for a long time, as if he had waited for many years. However, time and space were chaotic. He didn't know how much time had passed in the outside world. When the space phenomenon appeared, Jiang Xiu gave up resisting, and was sucked into the whirlpool of the universe. Even with Jiang Xiu's cultivation, he lost consciousness. He didn't know whether it was because his consciousness was sealed, or because time stopped in the whirlpool. Since time stopped, everything stopped as well. He couldn't think of anything. It was similar to a seal, a deep sleep. After an unknown amount of time, Jiang Xiu quietly laid in the dark space. Slowly he opened his eyes. He felt that a century had passed, or even longer. However, this space gave him a familiar feeling. It should be the space where Earth was. Have I returned here? Jiang Xiu stood up and swept his gaze across the dark space. Like a prodigal son of the universe, he walked in the direction of Earth. The last time he returned to the immortal martial continent, He was trembling with fear. This time he didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. The cultivation of a divine emperor was a top-notch existence wherever he went. The major races in outer space wouldn't dare to provoke him. In fact, there were many strange races in the space of the immortal Martial continent. Some of the experts in the immortal Martial continent would eventually enter outer space. When they couldn't find the opportunity to become a divine emperor in the immortal Martial continent, they would enter outer space. He saw a bluish planet. Earth, I'm back. Chapter 793. There was no doubt that the Earth was in front of him, but it was completely different from the Earth in Jiang Xiu's memory. The Earth was divided into 3 major regions, which was planned by Jiang Xiu before he left. It was divided into the Heaven Realm, the Demon Realm, and the Human Realm. I wonder how Dad and Mom are doing? Jiang Xiu looked at his hometown, which had changed beyond recognition, and sighed in his heart. He actually had a feeling of longing for his hometown, and his heart was itching to return home. When Jiang Xiu left the Earth, he had made up his mind not to come back. However, things developed beyond his imagination. First of all, the speed of cultivation. Jiang Xiu thought that it would take hundreds or thousands of years for him to return to the peak. He didn't expect that not only did he recover his cultivation, but he also became a divine emperor. They should be in the human realm. To a large extent, the current state of the Earth was related to the descent of the goddess. However, it might not be the only reason. There should be some accidents. Things in the world were always unpredictable. Even the highest level god, the divine emperor Cheng Lingsu, who had mastered the Great Fate technique, could not do whatever she wanted. If she could do whatever she wanted, this matter would be boring. In just a flash, Jiang Xiu entered the human world. This place was even more developed than before. There were many tall buildings. It was even more advanced than the city he remembered from his memories. However, it was limited. The city was very developed, but the countryside and mountains were very desolate. People could not leave the city and could not enter the mountains. The human realm was divided into safe and unsafe areas. Jiangnan Jiangcheng. Before Jiang Xiu left, he had entrusted his parents to number 1. In addition, they were under the protection of the Wang family. He believed that they would not have a hard time. The city had changed a lot. It could be said that it was beyond recognition. However, Jiang Xiu was born and raised in Jiangcheng. He could still recognize several main roads, especially the wetland. He found it with a glance. Is it possible that they will live in the villa? Jiang Xiu was the first to go to the wetland villa. He remembered that it was given to him by Elder Tang. Later, it was taken away by someone else, so he bought it back. The wetlands didn't change much, and the villas were still there. Judging from the time period, according to Earth's development speed, it was estimated that it would only take about 10 years. It might be about the same time period as when Jiang Xiu was taken away by Master before the Great Fate technique. They passed by Yi Bing's house. This villa was rather interesting. It was dilapidated and did not match the surroundings at all. It should have been deserted for a long time. If nothing unexpected happened, Yi Bing would directly abandon this home and leave. To her, a villa on Earth was like dung. Speaking of which, this was the first place Jiang Xiu came to under the Great Fate skill of Emperor Cheng Lingsu, and he was entangled with Yi Bing. It was unknown if there was any inevitable relationship between them. After bypassing Yi Bing's former home, he saw his own villa. The villa was very clean. If nothing unexpected happened, there should be someone living there. Jiang Xiu was a little excited and pressed the doorbell. Perhaps it was because of the environment. Logically speaking, it should be easy for him to know if his parents were inside, but he forgot. It was as if he had become an ordinary person after coming to Earth. Coming. Hearing the voice, Jiang Xiu inexplicably thought of the many tragedies in his childhood. His father's tragedy, his family's tragedy, and his entanglement with the Cheng family's 2 pearls. "Excuse me, who are you looking for?" The door opened. It was a middle-aged woman. She was quite elegant, but Jiang Xiu did not recognize her. Looking at her, she did not look like a housekeeper. "Is this Chen Xiulan's house?" The middle-aged woman shook her head. "This used to be Madame Zhang's house, but many young people have moved away." Jiang Xiu said. Moved away again? He was worried that something would happen to his parents. However, since no one lived here, it was possible to sell or rent it out. Do you know where Madame Jiang lives now? I heard that it's Hangzhou. Jiang City's job transfer, so the two of them went to Hangzhou. Jiang Xiu said, Thank you. This news made Jiang Xiu feel a little relieved. If it was just a job transfer, then his parents should be safe. Now China was very prosperous, and it was the largest country. About 10 years had passed. Number 1 should have retired, but the capital left by Jiang Xiu at that time should be enough to support the Wang family. Whoosh! In the next moment, Jiang Xiu appeared in Jiang Garden in Jiang City. Seeing that the plaque still had the words Jiang Garden written on it, he was relieved. It seemed that Wang Xintong had kept her promise. Now on Earth, the major biological groups had matured, and each had their own specialties. Wang Xintong had the cultivation concentration left by Jiang Xiu, so she had an advantage over others. With her intelligence, unless there was an extremely strong person suppressing them, the Wang family would not collapse. At that time, the so-called divine list had already been suppressed by Jiang Xiu, but it did not rule out the appearance of stronger people. However, since the heaven realm and the demon realm had been separated from the human world, those strong people would definitely move to the heaven realm. Excuse me, who are you looking for? It was a young man at the door. 10 years had passed, and the people in Jiang Garden should have changed. I'm looking for Wang Xintong. The young man frowned. You're looking for our eldest miss, but she's not here, Jiang Xiu said. Where did she go? She went to the danger zone. Jiang Xiu had not returned for many years, and there were some things that he did not know. He was not interested in where the so-called danger zone was, and his desire to see Wang Xintong was not very strong. He still wanted to see his parents first. Then do you know where Madame Jiang lives? You mean Madame Jiang? Madame Jiang is old and her health is average. She was brought to the heaven realm to live. Jiang Xiu said. Heaven realm? Who took her away? I think it was the young lady of the Long family. Jiang Xiu thought of the girl with the mutated soul. This little girl did not seem to treat him well, but he did not expect her to be so kind. She actually brought his parents to the heaven realm. There, with the nourishment of spiritual energy, it was not a problem to live up to 200 years old. She probably wanted his parents to live longer and wait for him to come back. Sir, may I ask who you are? Seeing that Jiang Xiu was extraordinary, he said so much to Jiang Xiu. My surname is Jiang. He glanced at the manor. The past was still vivid in his mind. Back then, he lived here for a period of time, and it could be considered his home. Now that Jiang Xiu wanted to go in, this little brother would definitely not let him, so he might as well not go in. The past was already a thing of the past to him. Who is it? At this time, an old housekeeper walked out. He was not even 50 years old back then, but now he was over 60 years old. If Jiang Xiu saw him, he would still remember this face. For more than 10 years, he had always been the housekeeper of this manor, helping Wang Xintong take care of this manor. Naturally, he would recognize Jiang Xiu. A young man, he said he came to look for the eldest miss. The old housekeeper narrowed his eyes and looked at Jiang Xiu's back. He faintly felt a sense of familiarity, but he could not remember. This person looks a bit familiar. Old housekeeper knows him? The old housekeeper said. I should know him. Then do you want me to call him back? The old steward shook his head lightly and said, Forget it. If he really has something important to discuss with the young miss, he will probably come again. His temples were already white, and the passage of time had left wrinkles and vicissitudes on his face. Over the years, he had already seen all kinds of big shots and seen through the fickleness of the world. Those who supported the Wang family, those who hated the Wang family, and those who talked behind their backs. He had experienced all kinds of things and had long seen through everything. And this young man was just one of these people. At this time, a black Mercedes-Benz slowly drove in from outside. In the back seat of the boss sat a pretty young woman. Who else could it be if it was not Wang Xintong? Now she was already over 40 years old, but she looked like she was in her 30s. Time had not left any traces on her body, but she had grown from a young girl to a mature woman. Her figure was even more plump, like a ripe peach. Jiang Xiu's figure had already soared into the sky, and in an instant, he was hundreds of meters away. Wang Xintong faintly felt a powerful aura flash by, and couldn't help but roll down the window and look out. Although she had only been cultivating for more than 10 years, she was still able to sense spiritual power. Chapter 794. The car soon arrived at Jiangyuan. The reason why the old housekeeper came out was to pick up Wang Xintong's car. Seeing that the car had arrived, he respectfully opened the door with some joy and said, "Eldest Miss is back?" Wang Xintong's figure was much more plump than before. Coupled with the change in her style of dress, she became extremely sexy. The moment the car door opened, the Wang family members who were waiting on both sides were a little nervous. They wanted to look but didn't dare to. They stole a few glances, and their hearts were beating nervously. They exclaimed in their hearts, "So beautiful." After getting out of the car, Wang Xintong asked, "Are there any guests today?" The road to Jiangyuan was very long. Anyone who came on this road had only one destination, which was Jiangyuan. If the feeling just now was not wrong, there should be someone visiting. The old butler was surprised. The young miss never cared about who came to visit, so he said carefully, "There was indeed a guest just now." Wang Xintong asked, "Who was it?" The old housekeeper said, "I don't know the details." "Did that person say who he was?" The Wang family member who received Jiang Xiu said, "Just now that person said that he was looking for Mississippi. You weren't here just now, so I told you the truth. I asked who he was, and he only said that his surname was Jiang." This disciple was so talkative that Wang Xintong's patience was almost worn out. When she heard the two words surname Jiang, she suddenly turned her head and asked excitedly, "What did you say?" "He said his surname was Jiang." "How old is he? What does he look like?" When the disciple saw the young miss lose her composure, he immediately said nervously, "He's about 20 years old. He's very young, but he has a very strange aura. His appearance is very perfect. His face is flawless, just like the gods of ancient Greece. Especially his eyes, they're as deep as a black abyss." "It's him. Is he really back?" Wang Xintong was absent-minded. Over the years, whenever it was late at night, she would take off her clothes and dance to her heart's content. She would jump up and down, toss and turn lightly, extremely moving. In her mind, she would imagine Jiang Xiu using a pair of fiery eyes to greedily look at her, thus obtaining endless satisfaction. But the age doesn't match. It's been 16 years, and he's 4 years younger than me. He should be 35 now. Find someone to make a portrait of him on the computer immediately. All right. After Wang Xintong finished speaking, she walked inside. Looking at her back, the old butler felt that it was very strange, and he became even more pensive. "Hurry up and do it." On the desk in Wang Xintong's room, there was a photo of Jiang Xiu from back then. He looked back coldly, revealing an indescribable charm. "It's been 16 years. Time flies. I'm getting old." She stretched out her slender fingers and gently stroked Jiang Xiu's face in the photo. "Why haven't you recovered yet? Are you really going to wait until I'm 70 or 80 years old?" Wang Xintong's clear eyes slowly overflowed with sparkling and translucent tears. She was so tired from waiting, but she had no regrets. As long as she thought of Jiang Xiu, she would feel satisfied. Everything he had now was given to him by Jiang Xiu. Knock knock. Someone was knocking on the door. The disciple pushed the door open and said, "Young mistress, that person's portrait is done. Hurry up and show it to me." This was the first time he had seen young mistress's office. It was such a high-class place, and it symbolized the highest power of the Wang family. He hurriedly handed the photo over. Holding it in her hand, Wang Xintong could no longer hold back the tears in her eyes. "It's you, it's really you." Although the appearance in the photo was different from before, the outline was still there. Moreover, this was a composite photo, so it was natural for Wang Xintong to see some differences. "You're finally willing to come back." At this moment, the old butler came in with tea from outside. He was also stunned when he saw the photo. With a thud, the teacups in his hands all fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. "Mr. Jiang." No wonder the back looked so familiar. It was actually Mr. Jiang. All these years, the old butler had seen how Wang Xintong had lived. She was almost 40 years old, and not only was she unmarried, but she didn't even have a man by her side. Everyone said that Wang Xintong was a queen with high standards and didn't like men. Little did they know that Wang Xintong's heart had long been conquered, and there was no room for anyone else in her life. The disciple of the Wang family was stunned. He's Mr. Jiang? Wang Xintong asked excitedly. Why did he leave? Did he say when he would come back? The disciple hurriedly shook his head. He didn't say anything else? Wang Xintong slumped back into the chair, as if she had lost her soul. Jiang Xiu didn't have an address or a phone number. Even if she knew that he was back, she wouldn't be able to find him. Go tell all the disciples to go out and look for him. Use all the connections you can. Yes. Wang Xintong held the photo in her hand. Why didn't you wait for me at home? This is your home too. Why did you make yourself an outsider? The old butler's eyes were filled with tears. Mr. Jiang is finally back. Young mistress, you've suffered all these years. You can finally get out of it. Suffer? Wang Xintong shook her head. The one who really suffered is Mr. Jiang. He was betrayed by the woman he loved deeply, and he even killed her with his own hands. No one can suffer more than him. But 16 years have passed. No matter how painful it is, he should have forgotten about it. The old butler didn't say anything. He was happy for young mistress. You're still so young and peerless, but I. Wang Xintong touched her face and hurriedly ran to the mirror. In the mirror, her face was filled with tears, revealing a poignant beauty. She was truly pitiful. Now that she had started cultivating, her skin was so white that it glowed. It was extremely alluring. But I'm old. I'm already middle-aged. The old butler said, You're not old. Young mistress, you're not old at all. Mr. Jiang will like you. He'll like you even more than before. Wang Xintong smiled and wiped away her tears. After Jiang Xiu left Jiang Garden, he was hesitating where to go next. Unconsciously, he arrived at West Lake. The scenery here was more beautiful than before, and there were many pedestrians. He had experienced some things here before. He met Yi Bing here. Cheng Lingsu knelt in front of someone in Westlake Manor. Feeling a familiar aura, Jiang Xiu looked over and saw a couple playing with a 10-year-old boy by Westlake. Jiang Xiu didn't know the man, but Jiang Xiu had a deep impression of the woman. Ouyang Qian was Cheng Lingsu's best friend in high school. She was a very realistic person. When Cheng Lingsu was in trouble, she stayed away. When Cheng Lingsu became rich, she came to make friends with her. Jiang Xiu didn't have any feelings for her, so he didn't think of going up to greet her. But she happened to look up. The moment she met Jiang Xiu's eyes, she was stunned and said in surprise, Jiang Xiu. No, Mr. Jiang. She recognized him at a glance. It seems that my appearance hasn't changed much. Jiang Xiu said, What a coincidence. Ouyang Qian looked at Jiang Xiu and said, You're indeed Mr. Jiang. You haven't changed at all after more than 10 years, but I've become an old woman. Jiang Xiu didn't change his expression, but Ouyang Qian wouldn't let him go so easily. She knew how powerful Jiang Xiu was. Jiang Xiu also asked politely, How have you been these years? A person like her should be able to live a good life. Ouyang Qian shook her head and said, Not good at all. Times have changed. Our family has declined. I don't have any abilities, so I can only marry a good-for-nothing and be an ordinary office worker. Oh, this is my son. Son, greet Uncle Jiang. Hello, Uncle Jiang. Jiang Xiu didn't even look at her son. Mr. Jiang, you must have been in heaven all these years. Su Su also went to heaven. Do you still keep in touch? I haven't contacted her for many years. Back in the day, Cheng Lingsu had asked for Jiang Xiu's secret technique, and she had the bowl with her. She was a future god emperor, so there was no way she would be lacking. However, Jiang Xiu wasn't in the mood to see her. No. Ouyang Qian saw that Jiang Xiu was so cold, and her husband beside her was also like a piece of wood. It's rare to see you here. Come to my house. Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, No, I have something to do. Ouyang Qian was very disappointed and said awkwardly, Well, a big shot like you must be very busy. However, he asked the people of the Nangong family and found that Nangong Ko had also gone to the heaven realm. Basically, all the biological groups in the past, as long as they had cultivated to the God realm, had all gone to the heaven realm. Jiang Xiu was no stranger to the heaven realm now. It was the place where the chaos opened, and it was full of opportunities. However, history had been changed by Jiang Xiu. According to the original plan, when the chaos opened, John Doe would get the real jade butterfly of fate. He could compete with Jiang Xiu for the great path of immortality of the Jindan stage, while Jiang Xiu got the great god sealing technique. He was the ancestor of immortals, and Jiang Xiu was the ancestor of gods. Jiang Xiu had made rapid progress in the immortal martial continent, and the person called John Doe must have made rapid progress in the heaven realm, where the chaos had just opened. Is Miss Nangong not coming back? Speaking of going to the heaven realm now, it felt like going abroad on earth in the past. She's coming back, but not much. Are you her friend? Jiang Xiu nodded. Before leaving, Jiang Xiu asked, is Miss Nangong married? Married? The butler shook his head and said, Miss Nangong is a god. How can a god get married? Of course, she focuses on cultivation to make herself stronger and live longer. He still remembered that Nangong Ko said that she could hang out with Jiang Xiu before she got married. Even after she got married, depending on the situation, she could still be with Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu was inexplicably excited. After all this time, more than 10 years had passed. She was already an old lady in her 30s, but she was still unmarried. Could it be that she had fallen in love with him? Speaking of which, he thought of the many interactions he had with Ko. This little girl looked very rational on the surface, but in fact, she was not rational at all. In the end, she was defeated by her own emotions. In fact, she was also a very willful person. Without meeting anyone, there was only one place left in the mortal world that Jiang Xiu hadn't gone yet. That was the ancient desert city where he had first met the goddess. This was the main purpose of Jiang Xiu's return. He wanted to find the origin of his feud with the goddess. He wanted to find the goddess. My master is at home. Do you want to come in? Jiang Xiu waved his hand, indicating that he wouldn't go in. With Jiang Xiu's current speed, it didn't take him long to circle the earth. In the next moment, he had already entered the desert area. The last time he came here, he had followed an archaeological team and encountered desert bandits at that time. Revisiting this old place, Jiang Xiu was also very excited. When he arrived at the entrance of the desert, he saw many people preparing to enter the desert. The desert today was completely different from that time. There were desert-type monsters in the desert, and some of the monsters' materials were very valuable. It had become a place for warriors to hunt monsters and make a fortune. In addition, it had also become a place for warriors to gain experience. Young man, are you going into the desert? An old man was leading a camel. Do you want to rent my camel? Jiang Xiu shook his head. Rent one. I'll give you a discount. It's very difficult to live in the desert without a camel. If you rent my camel, I can also teach you how to avoid the desert bandits. Jiang Xiu frowned slightly. There are still bandits in the desert. There are many of them. They are the descendants of an army left behind by Mr. Jiang. Their strength is outstanding and their firepower is powerful. As long as you encounter them, you will definitely be finished. However, I know their habits of moving out and can ensure that nothing goes wrong. This old man was glib-tongued. He seemed to be very sincere, but his words couldn't withstand scrutiny. No, what a joke. Jiang Xiu didn't need a camel to enter the desert now. When he was on Earth, he didn't need a camel. Moreover, he was a supreme divine emperor. His natal artifact was entrusted to the void, and he had an immortal body. Seeing that Jiang Xiu didn't intend to rent his camel, the old man moved his mouth at Jiang Xiu's back. He seemed to be very unhappy. But Jiang Xiu disappeared in a gust of wind. The old man couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock. My God, am I hallucinating? Is it the arrival of a god? Jiang Xiu had appeared in the depths of the desert. The desert was vast for mortals, but in Jiang Xiu's eyes, it was just a small area. As far as the eye could see, he could find the location of the ancient desert city. Finally, I'm here again. At that time, there was a golden giant below. and Jiang Xiu had cast a spell on it. And Jiang Xiu frowned again. He actually couldn't feel that the talisman he had cast back then had disappeared. He landed at the entrance of the ancient city and stomped his foot down. The sand on the ground was swept up into the sky. The golden giant used its body to block the entrance, but the sand and dust were swept up hundreds of meters high. The entrance of the ancient city was exposed, but the golden giant was still nowhere to be seen. Was it killed? Or did it leave? The possibility of the golden giant leaving was relatively small, and most of them were killed by someone. Jiang Xiu's first thought was of course the goddess, but after the shocking changes in the world for more than 10 years, a few gods had appeared. If they came here, they also had the power to kill the golden giant. Seeing the exposed stone steps, Jiang Xiu walked down. At that time, because the goddess had brought a different world, many monsters had appeared in the ancient tomb. At that time, everyone was busy running away, so Jiang Xiu didn't have the chance to see the entire underground city. This time, he had to find out more. Jiang Xiu had always thought that he would be able to find the goddess's roots in this ancient desert city. At the very least, he would be able to find some clues. There was also a statue of the goddess here that was identical to the one in western Zhou Mountain. Before this, Jiang Xiu had always thought that he was the only existence connected to the immortal Martial Continent, but now it seemed that wasn't the case. Earth and the immortal Martial Continent both had statues of the goddess. What was even more puzzling was that he had such a deep relationship with the statue of the goddess. Before the Great Fate art, Jiang Xiu had been killed by the goddess. Yes, although this might not be accurate, it was not far from the truth. Although Jiang Xiu didn't know what happened after Su Shaoan jumped off the cliff with him in her arms, the goddess did want to kill him. Chapter 796. In Jiang Garden, a member of the Wang family hurriedly reported, Mr. Zhang's whereabouts have been found. From the photos, he should be in the desert now. The desert? Wang Xintong's heart skipped a beat. She stood up from her seat. The ancient desert city. He's going to the ancient desert city. Prepare a military plane immediately. I want to go to the desert. But hurry. Wang Xintong only had one thought in her mind. She wanted to see Jiang Xiu. She had to see Jiang Xiu no matter what. You went to the ancient desert city before. You must have come back to find some clues. Jiang Xiu slowed down. Wait for me. In the ancient desert city nothing had changed. It was still the same as the last time he came. Jiang Xiu walked in leisurely. Soon he arrived in front of the statue of the goddess. From the moment he set foot here, Jiang Xiu had a strange feeling. It was familiar and intimate. He shouldn't have felt this way. It was the first time he felt this way. Seeing the statue of the goddess, Jiang Xiu was angry. A force surged out of his hand. The whole statue shattered into pieces with a bang. The inside of the statue was made of pure gold. How extravagant! At that time, there was a heavenly questioning talisman under the statue. According to Jiang Xiu's understanding, it was used to suppress the space of earth. After Jiang Xiu took it away, it should be said that Jiang Xiu broke in here and caused the goddess to come with another world, breaking the curse of the fire god. Looking at it now, Jiang Xiu had a feeling of being used. Although he wasn't sure what the problem was at that time, Jiang Xiu could only think of a way to break the curse of the fire god. And it was the altar that caused all of this. At that time, someone was reciting the words on the altar. Jiang Xiu remembered that it was Xieting. Later, the altar suddenly collapsed. When it fell from above, it fell into the water. The goddess used Xieting's body to bring the other world to earth. He turned to go to the altar again. At that time, Jiang Xiu thought that this matter had nothing to do with him. Everything was caused by Xieting because Xieting's family was the descendant of the ancient desert city. Now, it seemed that the Xie family was just a catalyst. The real target was still Jiang Xiu. Did she need to open the ancient desert city by herself, or could Jiang Xiu's arrival trigger some kind of imprisonment? Now that everything was in the past, it was difficult to investigate. Jiang Xiu could only blame himself for thinking too highly of himself at that time, and not paying attention to all the things about himself. Altar. At that time, the altar had already been destroyed. Jiang Xiu remembered very clearly that they had all fallen from the top because the altar had collapsed. Why is it still here? Jiang Xiu arrived at the altar in a flash. It was impossible for the altar to restore itself. He carefully examined it and found obvious signs of restoration. It's fixed. Thinking about the disappearance of the golden giant that guarded the ancient desert city and the restoration of the altar, it seemed that someone had come in, and their purpose was very likely to be to restore the altar. Who could it be? The goddess had to borrow someone's body to come here. Did she have someone on Earth she could use? He thought about how Cheng Lingran had attacked him and learned about his weakness, as well as Yi Bing's blood. Cheng Lingran was no longer on Earth. Although Yi Bing had disappeared at that time, she could still be on Earth. Jiang Xiu felt that the poisoning should also be related to the goddess. Otherwise, how could Cheng Lingran know his weakness? Yi Bing. After the Great Fate art, Jiang Xiu returned to his youth entangled with Yi Bing. The Great Fate art was cast by Cheng Lingsu. This meant that Cheng Lingsu was also related to the goddess. Things had become complicated and tangled up. Everyone had intersected with each other like a net. If I'm not wrong, it should be Yi Bing. She's the only one. Would it be useful to just rebuild the altar? Jiang Xiu was very curious. Why did the goddess spend so much effort to restore the altar? Could it be that the goddess wanted to borrow someone's body to descend again in the future? Thinking about it, Jiang Xiu felt that the possibility was very high. Jiang Xiu frowned because the content on the altar was different from the previous time. The previous time, it was recorded that the ancient desert city was destroyed by the Ming dynasty's army. But this time it was different. He was completely shocked when he saw the vivid and lifelike murals on the altar. The murals were actually the same as the murals of the Buzhou god that were circulated in the immortal martial continent. A dark and gloomy stone pillar with two giant serpents coiled around it, supporting the sky and suppressing the sea. How could this be? However, this was to be expected. The goddess had once appeared in the immortal martial continent after the fall of god Buzhou. Perhaps there was some connection between them. After all, they were both ancient gods. However, why would Yi Bing draw such a portrait? A stone with two serpents, and Yi Bing is also a serpent. Could it be that the god of Buzhou is the ancestor of the serpents? It wouldn't be strange for Yi Bing to know her ancestor. Jiang Xiu casually thought. Towards Yi Bing, Jiang Xiu didn't have much hatred. Although he was tricked, the one who truly acted against him was Cheng Lingran. It was just that Yi Bing was the one who provided the blood. If the mastermind was the goddess, Yi Bing probably had no choice but to do so. After Jiang Xiu stepped on the altar, he felt an intense sacrificial energy. This caused his heart to tremble. Could it be that the goddess of Buzhou intentionally set him up? Then he felt that there was a light surging up from the bottom of the altar. With a loud bang, the light rushed up from the bottom of the dust-covered altar, stirring up dust particles. Not good. The altar was lit up, and the sacrificial energy was activated. At the same time, he felt an extremely strong pulling force. Unfortunately, the goddess had underestimated Jiang Xiu's strength. It was impossible to trap Jiang Xiu with this level of strength. With Jiang Xiu's strength as a god emperor, he definitely had the strength to break free from this altar. Jiang Xiu subconsciously wanted to leave the altar, but a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. If he broke free from the altar, he would lose the clue to the goddess. He wanted to see how the goddess would use the altar to deal with him. Altars generally didn't have any obvious destructive power. Now that Jiang Xiu was a god emperor, he could even fight against the heavens, not to mention a mere altar. Therefore, Jiang Xiu didn't resist and let the altar do whatever it wanted. He felt a two-dimensional force pulling him, and his body slowly floated up. Then the altar shook violently. Jiang Xiu, suddenly he heard an excited voice. Jiang Xiu didn't expect that someone would enter the ancient desert city and recognize him. Could it be the goddess? Or Yi Bing? But when he turned his head, he didn't see any enemies but an old friend. Wang Xintong. She had matured and become more beautiful. When she saw Jiang Xiu, her eyes turned red, and she was so excited that she wanted to cry. But the happy expression quickly froze on her face. She saw Jiang Xiu slowly rising up into the sky. No, Jiang Xiu, don't go. Wang Xintong flew towards Jiang Xiu. Unexpectedly, she also crossed hundreds of meters in one leap. She had spent a lot of effort on cultivation in the past 10 years. Her body was as light as a fairy. Why are you here? She was very fast, but Jiang Xiu had already risen more than 1 meter. His whole body was surrounded by surging qi. The wind and the light were so strong that it was very uncomfortable. Don't go. Jiang Xiu didn't stop. Stay please, I'll dance for you. I haven't slacked off in the past 10 years. I've become better at dancing. I'll dance for you. Stay. Wang Xintong screamed in despair. Jiang Xiu still didn't stop. She desperately rushed onto the altar and into the light and wind. She grabbed Jiang Xiu's arm. Her beautiful face was full of sadness, and her eyes were filled with tears. Take me with you. Don't leave me alone. Jiang Xiu was about to say something, but his expression changed. Wang Xintong's face in front of him was aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. Jiang Xiu anxiously shouted, "Quick, let go or you'll die." On the other side of the altar was another void. Wang Xintong's cultivation wasn't enough to withstand it. Only an existence like Jiang Xiu, who had transcended time and space, could travel back and forth freely without being affected at all. Jiang Xiu. Chapter 797. Wang Xintong stubbornly grabbed his hand and refused to let go. Her face was getting older and older, and even her hair was turning white. Jiang Xiu shouted, "Let go of me. You will die if this goes on. You don't want to live anymore." There was no reason for Wang Xintong not to feel that her life was slipping away. However, she still held his hand tightly and begged, take me with you, take me with you." Jiang Xiu shouted, "Let go of me. You will die." In an instant, Wang Xintong had aged like an old woman. Her hair was white and her face was full of wrinkles. She became extremely weak. "Take me. Let go." Wang Xintong didn't let go. She wouldn't let go even if she died. After waiting for more than 10 years, this day finally came. How could she be willing to let go? However, she was so weak that she couldn't even stand. Jiang Xiu shook her hand forcefully and got rid of her hand. Wang Xintong screamed and broke away from the light circle. She fell heavily to the ground. "No," she shouted desperately. "Go back. We will meet again if fate allows." The light of the altar became more and more intense. Jiang Xiu was hidden in it. After reaching the peak, it began to dim and finally turned into scattered light particles. However, Jiang Xiu, who was originally in it, was nowhere to be found. "Jiang Xiu." This was the last sentence that Wang Xintong shouted. After breaking away from the strange power of the altar, she quickly recovered. Judging from her many years of cultivation, she should be in a completely different time and space. She couldn't bear it at all. That was why she suddenly aged like this. "You must come back," she shouted at the empty altar. Although there were still tears on her face, there was a trace of a smile on her face. Because she saw Jiang Xiu. After waiting for more than 10 years, she finally saw him. Perhaps one day, they would really be able to meet again. By then, she might be in her 70s or 80s, but she had no regrets. On the other side, Jiang Xiu was sucked into the turbulence of spacetime. A strange power of sacrifice brought him along as his thoughts rapidly flowed through spacetime. This was also the first time he was traversing space and time using a sacrificial method. Logically speaking, a sacrificial ritual was an existence that transcended space and time. It was said that in ancient times, the so-called teleportation array was based on the principle of offering sacrifices. Sure enough, in the next moment, Jiang Xiu felt his body become lighter. He appeared out of thin air and landed on the ground. It seemed that he was also standing on a square altar. Where is this? The spirit qi in the air was very abundant. It was certain that this was no longer Earth. How desolate! Standing on the altar, he surveyed his surroundings. It was deathly silent. Desolation was everywhere. Other than the faint sound of the wind, there wasn't even the chirping of birds. It was terrifyingly quiet. At that moment, Jiang Xiu suddenly sensed a few powerful auras quickly flying over. He guessed that the divine daughter's people must have come over because they had activated the altar. Since this altar was related to the goddess, and these auras were far from the level of an ancient god, it was most likely not the goddess herself. They were either her subordinates or followers. Even if he caught these people, he might not be able to see the goddess. Thus, Jiang Xiu simply fell to the ground and lay there motionless, as if he had fainted. At Jiang Xiu's level, the naked eye could not restrict his vision. This was a group of strange people. They were only wearing a white robe tied with a belt and straw sandals. They gave Jiang Xiu the feeling that they were from ancient times, the Shang and Zhou dynasties, when human civilization had just begun. Elder, look, there really are people. What a strange person. There were more than 10 people who had come. They surrounded Jiang Xiu as if he were a monster. They carefully sized him up with deep vigilance. Are you still alive? Yes. One of them came over and placed his hand on Jiang Xiu's forehead to confirm that Jiang Xiu was still alive. His clothes are so strange, and he even triggered the power of the altar. Could he be the one the goddess wants? The goddess. Hearing this title, Jiang Xiu's heart skipped a beat. This was the first time he felt so close to this person. As long as these people brought Jiang Xiu to the goddess, then the time for revenge would come. What should we do, Elder? The elder's hair was very strange. It was black and white, and although it was messy, it was orderly. Bring him back, but make sure to keep a close eye on him. Yes. Someone came over and carried Jiang Xiu on his back. Wait, for safety's sake, let's seal his magic power. If he's too strong and injures the goddess, that would be bad. The elder was very considerate. Yes. Then Jiang Xiu felt someone draw a seal on his hand, and then put it in his hand. Suddenly, a golden light rushed into Jiang Xiu's head, and went straight into his head. Of course, a seal of this level couldn't do anything to Jiang Xiu. However, this sealing technique was extremely ingenious. If Jiang Xiu hadn't reached the Emperor realm, and entrusted his cultivation to the void, he might have been sealed by the sealing technique. It's done. Then let's go. What Jiang Xiu didn't expect was that the other party actually brought along a coffin. Just now, he felt that these people were carrying something. It turned out to be a coffin, and they even placed him inside. The 4 people carried him and flew away in the air. This is bad luck, Jiang Xiu cursed in his heart. However, he wasn't the first person to die, so he didn't care. Besides, divine emperors were afraid of taboos. After entering the coffin, he opened his eyes. In the pitch-black coffin, his eyes carried a terrifying chill as he sensed the aura around him. His mind couldn't help but recall a scene where the world was pitch-black, where the waves of the ocean were rolling, where the wind was howling, and where lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. It was a scene where Mount Buzhou was on the verge of collapse. He would soon be able to see the goddess. Now, even if he hadn't fully mastered the Great God Seal technique, he had at least successfully cultivated it. The power of the God Seal steel was constantly increasing, and the immortal martial continent was about to be transformed into Shenwu continent by him. The merit of an entire world was enough to make him afraid. The power of the God Seal steel's merit was enough to kill him. A divine emperor. He believed that it would be able to deal with the goddess. According to Jiang Xiu's conjecture, the goddess should be an ancient god like Mount Buzhou. However, she needed a vessel to descend to another world. In addition, the goddess hated Jiang Xiu so much, but she couldn't directly kill him. From this point of view, her current situation wasn't too good. Therefore, Jiang Xiu was still very confident. As long as he could see the goddess, he felt that he had an 80% chance of victory. No, even a 90% chance of victory. The group flew for a long time, and during this time, they didn't rest. Eventually, they arrived at a place that looked like a divine palace. We're here. The people put down the coffin. Carry him out. The coffin was opened, and the 2 men carried Jiang Xiu out, one at the head and one at the tail. Su, reporting to the goddess. Even if the altar's spirit has manifested, the person he wants has finally arrived. Someone answered from the other side. This divine palace was in the sky, and it was as sturdy as a palace. There were many smaller palaces around the palace, but this one was the largest. The ground was very soft, and it was actually formed from condensed spirit energy that was supported by world power. Was this where the goddess resided? Jiang Xiu didn't act rashly. Unless he saw the real goddess, he couldn't act rashly. The closer he was to success, the more he had to be calm and careful. This was because it was easier to miss the opportunity. What, she's here? Within the divine palace, a woman's voice sounded out in surprise. Yes, she's already here. The woman said. Quick, bring me to see. She was wearing a pure white immortal robe, and her entire body was emitting an ethereal aura. Her body flew out of the divine palace. She quickly landed beside Jiang Xiu. Looking at Jiang Xiu, who was lying on the ground, she cried out involuntarily, "It's really him." A familiar aura, a familiar voice. Jiang Xiu's lips curled into a smile. He slowly sat up, and like a corpse coming back to life, he slowly opened his eyes. There was a terrifying cold light in his eyes. We finally meet. However, when Jiang Xiu saw the woman clearly, he was stunned. His eyes revealed great shock and he shouted in disbelief, "Why is it you?" Chapter 798. The woman in front of him was so familiar. However, she used to be dressed like a young girl in the city. Now, she was dressed like an ancient costume. However, Jiang Xiu could never forget her face. This was because Jiang Xiu was almost poisoned to death by her blood. Why are you here? Jiang Xiu's heart sank. Could it be that Yi Bing was a goddess? He really didn't expect this result. No, that wasn't right. He didn't feel the aura of an ancient god on Yi Bing's body. Yi Bing's aura was quite weak. She was just an ordinary demon god. If she was really a goddess, her cultivation would be very powerful. Even if she was injured, the aura of an ancient god would be enough to suffocate people. However, she didn't have any of these. The Yi Bing in front of him was ordinary. Jiang Xiu, long time no see. When Yi Bing saw Jiang Xiu, her expression was a little stiff. However, she soon smiled sweetly. It was as if she had expected this to happen. Who are you? Jiang Xiu stood up. His tone was a little stiff, and his gaze was even sharper. If he couldn't control his anger, he might kill Yi Bing as soon as he made a move. However, Yi Bing thought that Jiang Xiu had been sealed. She didn't know that Jiang Xiu's strength had reached the Emperor realm. Therefore, she treated him with ease. It doesn't matter who I am, Jiang Xiu said. It's very, very important. If it wasn't an old friend, he would never let go of someone who wanted to harm him. Even if he had some interaction with this woman, he would never show mercy. Moreover, it was very likely that it was a honey trap. Don't be so calculative. Do you still blame me in your heart? Yi Bing's expression was very relaxed. Jiang Xiu looked at her coldly. His eyes were cold. You're not Yi Bing. Yi Bing smiled. She even turned 360 degrees. Her long hair, fluttering skirt, and slender and tall figure. Under the sunlight, she was like a fairy gathering the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was breathtaking. Ha ha. Look at me from head to toe. Which part of me doesn't look like Yi Bing? Jiang Xiu didn't have the slightest interest in appreciating her beautiful figure. Seeing that she didn't feel guilty and treated it with ease, he was even more annoyed in his heart. There's no resemblance. You're just a snake. Yi Bing's laughter stopped abruptly. You're not Yi Bing. The expression on Yi Bing's face became gloomy. She said, I am Yi Bing. It's just that, we are classmates and good friends, Jiang Xiu said. It's your blood that almost killed me. Why? Why did you do that? This was a huge question. Jiang Xiu wanted to know the answer, but he couldn't figure out why she wanted to harm him. Before the Great Fate technique, Yi Bing was just an ordinary person. The Great Fate technique could only change one's fate. It wasn't powerful enough to turn Yi Bing from a normal person into a snake. Yi Bing's face darkened. I didn't do it on purpose. Ha ha ha. Jiang Xiu threw his head back and laughed. This was the best joke he had ever heard. Yi Bing's snake blood almost killed him. Moreover, the blood was slowly drained. It didn't take a day or two, but a month or two. How could this be called unintentional? This was clearly premeditated. Yi Bing said, Do you hate me? Jiang Xiu's laughter finally stopped. He stared at Yi Bing's beautiful face. I want to know you're not Yi Bing. Why did you want to harm me? Yi Bing said, I wasn't before but I am now. She stubbornly insisted. Jiang Xiu didn't want to dwell on this issue with her. Whether it was Yi Bing or not, he didn't care. Although there was an ambiguous relationship between him and Yi Bing, they had never taken that step. The so-called friendship of power, even if it was just a little bit of friendship, had long disappeared in that premeditated murder. I don't care whether you are or not. Why did you want to harm me? Yi Bing said. I didn't want to kill you. It was the ancestor. Goddess. Yi Bing finally nodded this time. Why? Yi Bing shook her head and said, I can't ask about the ancestors' matters. I don't dare to ask. If you don't dare to ask, I will. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with killing intent. No matter what the reason was, he had to settle it today. Call him out. Yi Bing shook her head and said, The ancestor won't see you. Jiang Xiu's gaze swept over. Nothing within 100 miles could escape his eyes, but he didn't find any aura similar to a goddess. Where is he? Yi Bing shook her head. Jiang Xiu said angrily, Speak quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yi Bing's eyebrows twitched. She said helplessly, Jiang Xiu, you still think you're in spiritual cultivation. Don't you feel that your magic power has been sealed? This is a seal passed down by the ancestor. It's specially used to deal with you. Indeed, this seal was very strong. If Jiang Xiu hadn't become a divine emperor, he would have been sealed by this power. Is that so? Jiang Xiu said. Do you think this sovereign is so easy to subdue? Yi Bing said, Don't show off. Be obedient. I will treat you well for the sake of our old friendship. At the very least, your days here won't be any worse than on Earth. Then shouldn't I thank you? Yi Bing turned around and walked inside. She meant for Jiang Xiu to follow. Jiang Xiu wasn't in a hurry. Yi Bing definitely knew where the goddess was. But to deal with someone like Yi Bing, using force wasn't a good idea. They were curious. The buildings here were very old. There was a boundless aura everywhere. The sky here was especially high and blue. The sea here was also especially vast. When they entered the 10-meter-tall palace, they saw a mural of God Buzhou on the wall. You are the descendants of God Buzhou. Yi Bing looked back and smiled. Seems like you aren't. Jiang Xiu, you weren't like this in the past. Now you're getting better at pretending. Look at your arm. Jiang Xiu looked at his arm. There were Heaven's Inquisition divine Dao patterns on it. In fact, it wasn't just on his arm. His entire body was densely covered. Me too. Yi Bing said. Don't tell me you really don't know. Jiang Xiu had always been curious about his Protoss bloodline. But after the Heaven's Inquisition divine Dao patterns appeared on his body, he naturally suspected that his race was related to God Buzhou's bloodline. But he couldn't be sure. He even thought it was related to Zhaorong's blood essence. But now that he thought about it, such a simple logic had confused him for so long. If he wasn't from the Heaven's Inquisition race, even if he absorbed the power of the blood essence, he would awaken his own race's Protoss bloodline, and not another race. His Protoss bloodline was undoubtedly from the Heaven's Inquisition race. Then why is your blood able to restrain my natal divine artifact, and even almost kill me? Yi Bing said. What's so strange about that? Everything in this world has always been mutually reinforcing and restraining. Why are you still upset? You don't have to be upset now. My blood can only restrain you in the early stages of your race's bloodline. Now, even if you bite my neck and suck my blood dry, nothing will happen. You are now a divine king, and have entered the Heaven's Inquisition race's maturation stage. You won't be afraid of this little snake's blood anymore. Indeed, Jiang Xiu's current Protoss state was in the maturation stage. He didn't become a divine king through cultivation. Instead, he relied purely on his Protoss bloodline to grow and advance. Yi Bing also judged Jiang Xiu's Protoss stage to be a divine king, and not a divine emperor. He hadn't entered the maturation stage yet, so Yi Bing thought he was just a divine king. However, she didn't know that Jiang Xiu had obtained the great god sealing art, and cultivated to become a divine emperor with the spiritual cultivation general principles. You seem to know me better than I know myself. Yi Bing continued to walk forward. Occasionally, there would be people passing by. They should be the citizens of this place. Not to that extent. It's just that we share the same origin. Your bloodline is much nobler than mine. She stopped and turned to look at Jiang Xiu. We're here. Jiang Xiu entered the depths of the hall and looked left and right. He asked in confusion, "What, you don't plan to kill me?" The goddess had racked her brains to kill him. Now that he had delivered himself to her doorstep, why didn't she show herself to take his life? Kill, of course I will kill you. You must die. But before I can confirm that Divine Emperor Cheng Lingsu is defeated, you have to live first. Jiang Xiu frowned slightly. What do you mean? Chapter 799. Yi Bing's words caused Jiang Xiu to frown. He stared at her, waiting for her answer. What does this have to do with Cheng Lingsu? Cheng Lingsu's shadow was behind all of this. After the incident on the immortal martial continent, he suffered from the concealment of heaven's secrets and the Great Fate technique, returning to his youth. Only Cheng Lingsu could do this. After the Great Fate technique, the first person Jiang Xiu saw when he woke up was Yi Bing, the descendant of the goddess. Judging from this, Yi Bing should be Cheng Lingsu's subordinate. Could it be that Yi Bing was deliberately hiding it? But for the time being, he drew a line between Cheng Lingsu and the goddess. In fact, Jiang Xiu thought that Cheng Lingsu was the goddess. The more he thought about it, the more likely it was. Cheng Lingsu was a god emperor, and had the highest cultivation among all the people he knew. She was also the closest to the goddess. Moreover, she had a motive. She had a very deep connection with him. Perhaps Cheng Lingsu couldn't bear to see him develop so well in the immortal martial continent, and had a chance to break through to the emperor realm. So she plotted to descend to the immortal martial continent and harm him. One had to know that Dong Xiaowan looked exactly like Cheng Lingran. Cheng Lingsu knew his feelings for Cheng Lingran the best. She was his pillar of support. Yi Bing said, "Don't worry. You will know sooner or later, but not now." Jiang Xiu saw that she didn't say anything, so he didn't ask. He looked around and asked, "This is the world ruled by ancient Ting?" Yi Bing nodded. "Yes." "Cheng Lingsu is the god emperor here?" "Yes." Jiang Xiu's face gradually became gloomy. The possibility that Cheng Lingsu was the goddess was getting higher and higher. The goddess was in this world, and Cheng Lingsu was the ruler of this world. Gradually, the two of them became equal. Speaking of his relationship with Cheng Lingsu, he had to start from when he was a child. They were engaged, and Cheng Lingsu didn't like Jiang Xiu. After that, a series of things happened. Putting all of this aside for now, just the fact that Cheng Lingsu had concealed the events of the immortal martial continent from him, causing him to forget about this point, made her very suspicious. But there seemed to be something wrong. This didn't make sense. Why would Cheng Lingsu pay such a high price to use the Great Fate technique? "Come have something to eat." Yi Bing politely gave some fruits to Jiang Xiu. This kind of friendly and natural feeling made Jiang Xiu feel as if he had returned to Earth when they were classmates. However, this was completely fake. The two of them had already formed a grudge. Jiang Xiu wouldn't let Yi Bing go, and Yi Bing also said that Jiang Xiu must be killed. Since they already had this kind of relationship, why did she have to be so pretentious? "Why aren't you eating? These fruits don't exist on Earth. They're very delicious." As she spoke, she picked up a fruit that was red like a tomato on Earth and took a bite. It tasted very good in her mouth. Jiang Xiu was furious. Although he didn't want to reveal that his cultivation wasn't sealed, he still couldn't help but hit her, sending the fruit in her hand flying. "Don't put on an act in front of me." Yi Bing didn't get angry. She looked at the angry Jiang Xiu and said, "It's rare for you to be so rude. This isn't your style. No matter what, I'm still a girl and an old classmate. Why aren't you giving me any face?" Jiang Xiu said, "Goddess, what is your relationship with Cheng Lingsu?" Yi Bing's mouth was full of lies. It was possible that she was purposely setting a trap for him. The best way to hide the goddess' true identity was to cast her aside. "What do you think?" Jiang Xiu sneered in his heart. The more Yi Bing tried to play tricks, the more he felt that the goddess was actually Cheng Lingsu. But at this moment, A man dressed like a palace servant quickly walked in from outside the divine palace. Then he held something that looked like a holy title in his hand. Divine Emperor's Decree. Yi Bing's expression changed greatly when she heard this. She immediately knelt down. Of course, Jiang Xiu ignored her. Ancient Ting was a world under the rule of Cheng Lingsu. This so-called Divine Emperor's decree was Cheng Lingsu's decree. Asking Jiang Xiu to bow to Cheng Lingsu's decree was simply the biggest joke in the world. Immediately send Jiang Xiu to the palace to see the Divine Emperor. It was a simple sentence from the palace servant. Cheng Lingsu knows that I'm here and wants to see me? Jiang Xiu frowned and pondered. There was doubt in his eyes, but he seemed to suddenly see the light. He was more and more certain that Cheng Lingsu was the Divine Emperor. He snorted coldly twice. Yes, Divine Emperor's decree. Yi Bing stood up respectfully. She took the decree from the palace servant's hand, as if it was an imperial decree. No, it was even more respectful than an imperial decree. You're Jiang Xiu? The palace servant looked at Jiang Xiu. That's me. Let's go. Don't let the Divine Emperor wait. Jiang Xiu wanted to meet her. The last time he came, the Divine Emperor Cheng Lingsu was ill. It was said that it was the aftereffects of the Great Fate technique. This also coincided with the speculation that the goddess was not in good condition. Jiang Xiu, don't go. Yi Bing's face showed unprecedented panic. Her eyes were moist. She shook her head at Jiang Xiu. Don't go. At this moment, Jiang Xiu seemed to see the Yi Bing of the past. His heart was slightly moved. He still remembered the kiss in the phone booth after the rain after the college entrance exam. You'll die. Tears fell from her eyes. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was almost 100% sure that Cheng Lingsu was the goddess. What Yi Bing did to him was only because she was under Cheng Lingsu's control. However, she should have him in her heart. Is that so? Jiang Xiu's eyes were indifferent. A trace of coldness flashed through them. Maybe the one who dies won't be me. After saying this, he followed the palace servant. This moment had finally arrived. After entering the ancient courtyard, the palace servant brought Jiang Xiu to a celestial pond. Jiang Xiu said, "Why did you bring me here? Didn't you want to see Cheng Lingsu?" The servant said, "If you want to see the Divine Emperor, you obviously have to bathe and change your clothes." Jiang Xiu's heart surged with anger. What arrogance, what extravagance! He, Jiang Xiu, was also someone who aspired to be the top of the world in the immortal martial continent. Even he didn't put on such airs. A few young girls walked in, holding a set of new clothes in their hands. "Go down, the Divine Emperor is so clean," Jiang Xiu said in his heart. Since things had come to this, he could only endure it one last time. However, he still vigilantly glanced at the celestial pond. The surface of the pond was misty, but the water below was very clear. There shouldn't be any problems. Only after entering the pond did he realize that it was warm water. It was quite comfortable to soak in it. After taking off his clothes, Jiang Xiu's body was covered in the Heaven's Inquisition Divine Tao diagram. Although he closed his eyes, his vision wasn't obstructed at all. He didn't know how much Cheng Lingsu had recovered. Facing an opponent of the same level who had the great art of destiny, Jiang Xiu didn't have much confidence in this battle. This was the first time he felt such great pressure since he started cultivating. The number one existence in the 3000 Great Tao, while his great art of God sealing was only number 9. Moreover, it couldn't be said to have reached perfection. The young girls serving at the side scattered some flower petals into the celestial pond. This is the fragrance of the flowers that the Divine Emperor likes. Jiang Xiu didn't remember that Cheng Lingsu liked flowers. She seemed to hate them. In any case, when Jiang Xiu was infatuated with Cheng Lingsu, he gave her flowers, but she always threw them away. After that, Jiang Xiu didn't have the money to buy them, so he didn't buy them. Logically speaking, Jiang Xiu should hate her. Why was it that she was the one who harmed him first? Maybe it was because he was doing too well in the immortal martial continent, and Cheng Lingsu was afraid that he would come to settle the score with her one day, when he became an immortal king. Therefore she made the first move. One had to know that before the great art of destiny, Jiang Xiu's father was crippled by the Cheng family and committed suicide. Jiang Xiu's mother also committed suicide because of this. Jiang Xiu indeed harbored great hatred towards the Cheng family and Cheng Lingsu at that time. If Jiang Xiu had the ability and knew that Cheng Lingsu had become a divine emperor in this world, he would definitely take revenge and strangle the danger in the cradle. This was indeed what a person like Cheng Lingsu would do. At the very least, Jiang Xiu himself would make such a choice. All the mysteries would be solved after he met Cheng Lingsu. It's about time to get up. Don't make the divine emperor wait for too long. The servant at the side saw that Jiang Xiu wasn't willing to take a bath, but he didn't stop bathing. Are we finally going to meet? Chapter 800. Above the sky, the silver brilliance in the west spread to the whole world, illuminating the tiles and palaces of the ancient court as if they were covered with a layer of glittering paint, which was very moving. A tall woman in a white brocade dress stood on the lonely peak of the palace, exuding a soft brilliance, revealing a sense of mystery and holiness. Your Excellency, he's here. Seeing Jiang Xiu walking slowly under the guidance of the palace servants, a maid on the side reminded her softly. The side face of the outstanding woman was so perfect, but the outline of the past on her face was still clear, as if she was still the proud girl in the school uniform, but she was no longer the same as before. Yes, she responded faintly, as if she was at ease. However, before she spoke, she took a deep breath, which showed that she was calm at the moment. She even needed to muster up a bit of courage to make such a sound. When Jiang Xiu came closer, she slowly turned around. Her beautiful face, slender neck, soft and beautiful shoulders and tall figure, all of them showed her peerless beauty. Beautiful, dazzling and unattainable. The most dazzling stars on the red carpet were nothing compared to her. Although they were still far away, their eyes finally met. It seemed to have been a long time, 100 years, 1,000 years, or even 10,000 years, but it felt like they had just met yesterday. This was not the feeling of Jiang Xiu alone, but the feeling of Jiang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu. It could be seen that they were deeply entangled. When they came close, they looked at each other with a distance of only a few meters, but they still did not speak for a long time. However, Cheng Lingsu's eyes were relatively calm, while Jiang Xiu's eyes were cold and oppressive under the calmness. The surrounding waiters had never seen their Excellency treat a person like this. The atmosphere was very strange, and it could be said that they were a little nervous. What made them feel even more frustrated was that neither of them spoke first, as if they were in a fit of pique. It seemed that whoever spoke first would lose. Not far away, a waiter whispered, "What's the matter? Why don't they speak? Shu, don't make a sound." The two little girls hurriedly lowered their heads, but they couldn't resist their curiosity. Who is this person? Lord Shenhuang is so special to him. Yes, so handsome. You must be a love-struck fool. Jiang Xiu looked at Cheng Lingsu. Although the Cheng Lingsu in front of him was still the Cheng Lingsu in his memory, there was no difference at all. It was as if she had changed her clothes. There was no strange feeling at all. Even he didn't expect that he could be so calm in front of Cheng Lingsu. Perhaps it was the time to settle the score. Cheng Lingsu moved her dry lips. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She just looked at Jiang Xiu with a complicated expression in her bright eyes. Cheng Lingsu was a very strong-willed person, and so was Jiang Xiu. Before the great fate skill, Jiang Xiu was very down and out because of his family. It could be said that he had lost all his dignity in pursuing Cheng Lingsu's love. To the current Jiang Xiu, it was the biggest shame in his life. Why do you want me to die so much? Jiang Xiu finally opened his mouth. His calm heart was surging with volcanic anger. When he opened his mouth, it was like a sharp sword coming out of its sheath. Cheng Lingsu's eyes flashed. She wanted to say something, but in the end she couldn't say anything. She just looked at Jiang Xiu with sparkling eyes. What? You have nothing to say? With regards to the great fate skill, Jiang Xiu still felt some trepidation in his heart. After all, he knew nothing about the great fate skill. The power of his lesser fate skill was already not small. The great fate skill would definitely be even stronger. However, although the great fate skill could change the wheel of fate, it was unknown how strong its attack power was. Not only that, the price it had to pay was extremely high. If not, Cheng Lingsu wouldn't be in such a bad state right now. He felt that he had a 55% chance of success. The reason why his confidence was so high was because of the feeling he got after seeing Cheng Lingsu. Every expert would have a subjective feeling when facing an opponent. Although it was very mysterious, Jiang Xiu had fought with many people over the years. The accuracy of this feeling was 80 to 90% accurate. Before he acted, it was better to make some things clear. Why did you use the power of heaven's secrets to conceal what happened in the immortal martial continent? This was the question in Jiang Xiu's heart. Was there something he didn't know? Cheng Lingsu still didn't say anything. Now that things have come to this, you should be honest. Cheng Lingsu spoke after a while. Jiang Xiu, you overestimate me. Although I have the great fate skill, it's not enough to replace the heavens. The power of heaven's secrets didn't appear because of me. After everyone dies, they won't remember why they died. This is the heavenly Tao. Heavenly Tao? Jiang Xiu frowned as he looked at Cheng Lingsu. You mean I died? Yes, you died. Jiang Xiu felt a little choked up. Did he really die at that time? Don't tell me that you don't know what happened after Su Shaowan, and I jumped off the cliff. Cheng Lingsu said. I really don't know. I only found out when I went directly to Tianqing School to hold your funeral. Tianqing School held a funeral more than 30 years after Jiang Xiu jumped off the cliff. The Ji Dao sect had specially arranged a funeral for the former sect master in order to gain power. They revealed Jiang Xiu's corpse to everyone in Tianqing School to confirm his death. Jiang Xiu snorted coldly. You mean you're not a goddess? If she said that she only found out about Jiang Xiu's death at the funeral, then the one who plotted everything and caused his death was obviously not her, Cheng Lingsu. In just a few short sentences, he had cast aside everything. But Cheng Lingsu said, I don't deny that I'm a goddess. Ha ha ha. Jiang Xiu laughed loudly when he heard this. Everything that he had suppressed just now burst out. His aura climbed to the peak, his long hair and clothes fluttered angrily. But his smile was a little bitter because his heart ached when Cheng Lingsu admitted it. It turned out that in the bottom of his heart, he didn't want Cheng Lingsu to be a goddess. Of course, they had many conflicts before. Before the Great Fate, Cheng Lingsu hurt Jiang Xiu. After the Great Fate, Jiang Xiu tortured Cheng Lingsu. They hurt each other. But no matter how much they hurt each other, even when Jiang Xiu's father was crippled and his mother died for love, it could be said that the entire family was destroyed. Jiang Xiu never said that he would kill Cheng Lingsu to take revenge. Since you admit it then. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Prepare to die. Cheng Lingsu was very calm, as if Jiang Xiu's monstrous killing intent was not facing her. She calmly said, Jiang Xiu, do you want to kill me? Do you really want me to die in your heart? Will you be happy if I die? Jiang Xiu said. Yes, I'll be happy if you die. Don't blame me for being unrighteous. The grudges between our families will be settled today. The people on the side all became nervous. They never thought that today's guest would actually want to fight with the Divine Emperor. One of the attendants nervously shouted, Protect the Divine Emperor! Protect the Divine Emperor! For a moment, the entire ancient court was in chaos. Cheng Lingsu slowly raised her hand, indicating that those people should not move. The attendant nervously said, Divine Emperor, this person wants to rebel. Your precious body, how can you fight with such a small person? Retreat. The attendant had no choice but to retreat. Cheng Lingsu looked at Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu, do you really want to fight with me? She gently shook her head. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but there's a gap between our realms. You won't be my opponent. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed coldly. Is that so? How do you know if you don't try? With a boom, the power in his body was no longer hidden. Since the main character was here, then he would fight to his heart's content and kill to the end. An unimaginably powerful force swept out. The wind blew, and the surrounding spiritual energy burst out. Jiang Xiu's entire body was immersed in the light, especially the purple mark on his forehead. Seeing this, Cheng Lingsu no longer had her previous calmness. She softly cried out, Divine Emperor Seal. Chapter 801. Many people didn't know what this mark was, but as a divine emperor, Cheng Lingsu certainly knew. This was the mark of a divine emperor recognized by heaven and earth, that dazzling purple. Jiang Xiu was a divine emperor. This was obviously beyond Cheng Lingsu's expectations. You've become a divine emperor. How can you be so fast? Jiang Xiu's eyes were like an abyss, his whole body exuding an incomparable spirit. How is it? Now this venerable has the strength to compete with you. Cheng Lingsu said. Your progress is really far beyond my expectations. It's really a bit shocking. If that's the case, I can tell you something. Jiang Xiu said. What, are you scared? Don't dare to fight with me? Cheng Lingsu helplessly shook her head. Even if you're also a divine emperor, we're in the same realm. But if you fight with me, how confident are you? At most, you and I have a 50-50 chance. No. Cheng Lingsu's clear eyes flashed with a trace of mischievous craftiness. Your chances of winning are indeed higher than mine, because I'm injured. After using the Great Fate technique, my condition is very bad, far from my peak. You should be able to kill me. After saying this, Cheng Lingsu stared at Jiang Xiu and found him frowning. Although their later experiences were completely different, Jiang Xiu didn't know how Cheng Lingsu grew up. But as the saying goes, 3 years old is the judge of life. Cheng Lingsu knew Jiang Xiu too well. Although the tragedy of his family made him muddle-headed for more than 10 years, it didn't change that he was a person who exuded arrogance from his bones. For a proud person, he would never take advantage of his opponent. Cheng Lingsu's weakness was precisely Jiang Xiu's weak spot. Are you trying to provoke me? As soon as Cheng Lingsu opened her mouth, she was seen through by Jiang Xiu. Although Jiang Xiu understood the purpose of her words, what Cheng Lingsu said was also true, which made Jiang Xiu feel a toothache. Cheng Lingsu said, the Great God Sealing Technique is ranked 9th among the 3,000 Great Tao. I'm also very curious about how powerful it is. How did you know? Jiang Xiu felt very strange. He thought to himself, she must have seen the fight between me and John Doe when I was in the chaotic heaven realm on earth. It doesn't make sense. Even if she is a divine emperor and witnessed all the fight, she wouldn't know. If she knew, why didn't she take the jade butterfly of fate for herself? Or could it be that the appearance of the primal chaos celestial realm was her doing? No, this was also impossible. This was most likely something at the level of the ancient god of creation. It was not even something that a single individual could do. The Great Fate technique did not have such great power, absolutely not. Of course I know, because no matter how the Wheel of Fate changes, even if I can use the Great Fate technique to pull it, I can only change a small part of it. The Wheel of Fate will eventually return to its original path. Cheng Lingsu's expression was calm, as if her mood was even more relaxed than before. Jiang Xiu said, what exactly are you trying to say? Cheng Lingsu said, do you still remember the light of the divine path that you obtained after entering the Great Void stage? Of course I remember. Cheng Lingsu said. Then do you know where the light of the divine path comes from? In the past, when Jiang Xiu was not a divine cultivator or had not reached the divine emperor realm, he definitely could not answer this question. But now he knew clearly. It comes from merit deification. That's right. Cheng Lingsu nodded. It comes from merit deification. She looked around at the surrounding heaven and earth, including the people, the scenery, and the things here. She sighed. Originally, there should have been many deification here, but now, Jiang Xiu became more and more confused as he listened. They don't exist anymore. The light of the divine path that you saw in the Great Void. Each beam of light was once a god. However, since gods are sealed, once the item that sealed them is destroyed, they will all perish as well. Only the light of the divine path will remain. For example, the deification on the god-sealing monument were people who were sealed after death. If the god-sealing monument was no longer there, they would also cease to exist, leaving behind only a ray of light. Cheng Lingsu was actually so familiar with this path. What exactly are you trying to say? Cheng Lingsu said. Nothing. I just want to tell you that the Wheel of Fate seems to be returning to its original trajectory. This should be the celestial court. Jiang Xiu looked at Cheng Lingsu in front of him. She spoke very casually and calmly, but such words of weakness should not come out of her mouth at this moment. Do you think that I won't kill you after saying this? His killing intent was extremely firm. From the moment Cheng Lingsu admitted that she was a divine lady, not only did she harm Jiang Xiu, but she also killed Zhao Rong. Unforgivable. Make your move. Cheng Lingsu's expression did not change. She just stared at Jiang Xiu and bit her red lips. My injuries are very serious. I have no choice but to make my move. Jiang Xiu's lips twitched violently. His eyes flashed with anger as he roared. Since you're already injured to this extent, why do you still chase after me and insist on killing me? Do you hate me that much? He stared at Cheng Lingsu and shook his head repeatedly. He was very puzzled and couldn't understand. Why? I've already given up everything here and returned to the immortal martial continent to start a new life. Why do you still refuse to let me go? Why do you still want to kill Zhao Rong? Why? Jiang Xiu's roar transformed into a huge sound wave that reverberated through the heavens and earth. It was as if the heavens and earth were howling in grief. The anger of the heavens and earth shook everything. I'll kill you. He finally exploded, no longer able to restrain himself. He wanted to kill Cheng Lingsu, crush her into pieces and make her disappear completely. Only then would he be able to appease his hatred and anger. Cheng Lingsu remained indifferent as she looked at the saber light descending from the heavens. She just stared at Jiang Xiu and said, "If you want to kill me, then kill me." Slowly, she actually closed her eyes. The saber light didn't show any signs of stopping. It gathered the energy of the surrounding void and condensed it into a saber that pierced through the void. Even if it was a god emperor who resided in the void, facing a saber attack from a god emperor, it would still die. When she felt the saber's edge close to her, 2 streams of tears fell from Cheng Lingsu's tightly closed eyes. Lord God Emperor. The attendants present all cried out in alarm. However, in front of such a saber attack from a god emperor, they felt like they would be strangled to death even if they stood far away. There was no way they could help their Lord God Emperor. Tears flowed down her beautiful face, sparkling and translucent. Don't! The people around her screamed wildly. However, the saber light was merciless and determined to kill. Jiang Xiu came from the immortal martial continent and racked his brains to find this place. It was all for the sake of killing the goddess, for him, and for Zhao Rong. Just as the saber light was about to land on Cheng Lingsu's head, Cheng Lingsu actually didn't move at all. Jiang Xiu was greatly alarmed and hurriedly withdrew his saber. This was a very strange feeling. His mind was full of question marks. Why didn't she fight back or escape? To kill an immortal king, for immortal kings were needed. Then how many god emperors were needed to kill an emperor? Even if Cheng Lingsu was heavily injured, if she wanted to escape, she could still escape. Moreover, Jiang Xiu was actually very afraid. He was afraid that he would regret this move. Suddenly, he couldn't see anything else in his eyes except for that drop of tear, sparkling and translucent. Why didn't you dodge? Cheng Lingsu said. Why should I dodge? Why did you withdraw your saber? If you didn't withdraw your saber, I would have already been killed by you. Haven't you always wanted to take my life? Jiang Xiu couldn't answer. If you kill me, you will definitely regret it for the rest of your life. Seeing that you withdrew your saber, I will let you see for yourself. The sky was gray and his mood was incomparably dark. Jiang Xiu looked up and saw beads of rainwater falling down, hitting his face. It was ice cold. He was surrounded by tall buildings, brightly lit, and cars on the side of the road were constantly speeding by. He didn't know that he had come here so suddenly. Where is this? It was such a familiar scene, especially in front of him. It seemed to be a group of villas. Jiang Xiu vaguely remembered that this was the Cheng family's villa before the Great Fate technique. When Jiang Xiu was very down and out, that was the place he yearned for. He saw the door open. A man walked out angrily under the dim light and pouring rain. He didn't care about the rain. The light was very dim. Jiang Xiu tried hard to see clearly. Dad. Chapter 802. The street lights were dim, and the wind and rain made it even harder to see clearly. However, his father's figure had been imprinted in Jiang Xiu's mind since he was young. Therefore, although it was blurry, Jiang Xiu was sure that it was his father. Father Jiang looked like he had lost his soul. There was a kind of anger contained in his body that rushed forward. He seemed to be cursing something, and his feet were unsteady. He walked a little aimlessly. Finally, he came closer. Jiang Xiu saw his appearance clearly. It was indeed his father, but he didn't look old or young. He looked to be in his 40s. Father Jiang raised his head and let the rain fall on his face. His eyes were red with anger. I'm really blind. I'm really blind. He wasn't drunk, but his heart was drunk. He walked forward in a daze in the wind and rain. Seeing his father like this, Jiang Xiu's heart ached. At this moment, there was movement in the villa. A slim figure walked out. She stood in front of the door and looked at Father Jiang in the distance. She was slightly moved. From the figure, she looked very much like Cheng Lingsu. Of course, it could also be Cheng Lingran. The two sisters looked too similar. Then she took out her phone and said, "Let's do things quickly and efficiently." If one's vision was bad, they wouldn't be able to tell if this person was Cheng Lingsu or Cheng Lingran. However, Jiang Xiu would never forget the voice. This was the voice of his wife, Cheng Lingran, who was also engraved in his heart before the Great Fate technique. What did this sentence mean? The voice was very sinister. It didn't sound like the gentle Cheng Lingran at all. From the literal meaning of this sentence, Jiang Xiu felt a murderous intent. Not good. He thought about the direction his father went. He ran in the wind and rain. He guessed that it should be the day before Cheng Lingsu decided to go abroad and abandon Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu begged his father. Father Jiang finally put down his face and went to the Cheng family to beg Chen Hanlin to let his son marry Cheng Lingsu. It was also on this night that his father was hit by a car on the way back. He didn't die, but he was permanently disabled. He heard the sound of an engine. When he ran over, he saw a black Mercedes-Benz. It wasn't driving fast at first, but after seeing Jiang Yi, it suddenly sped up. This was murder, deliberate murder. Jiang Xiu would never have thought that the person who ordered his father to be killed was Cheng Lingran. No, Father Jiang didn't notice at all. Even if he heard the sound of a speeding car, he thought that there wouldn't be any problems on the side of the road. How could he have known that someone would be so ambitious as to kill him? By the time he realized that something was wrong and turned around, all he could see was the blinding light. In his panic, he was sent flying. Dad. Jiang Yi fell heavily to the ground. The blood that flowed out dyed the rain on the ground red. After the car hit him, it didn't leave in a hurry. Seeing Jiang Yi struggling on the ground, it actually wanted to turn back. It was at this moment that a car's headlights shone on the road behind them. Someone was coming. The driver gave up. He started the car and roared away. It's Cheng Lingran. Jiang Xiu felt endless hatred burning in every cell of his body. The person who hit his father was Cheng Lingran. Why? The wind and rain dispersed. It became bright again. Only the mighty wind blew gently around them. Jiang Xiu raised his head and looked at Cheng Lingsu in front of him. His eyes were red like a beast's. Why did she want to kill my father? Why? Cheng Lingsu moved her lips and said with difficulty, because she wanted me to go abroad. She wanted me to stay abroad. At that time, she had already started to take over the family business. She was very ambitious and wanted a lot. If I stayed in China, I would have to take half of it. She didn't want to give it to me. Jiang Xiu said, but didn't you and your parents insist on drawing a line with my family? My father should have been rejected by you. Cheng Lingsu shook her head and said, you guessed wrong. After Uncle Jiang left, my father was in a panic. He didn't know at that time, but now it's clear. Uncle Jiang must have used the power of the Jiang family to threaten my father. Or maybe Uncle Jiang still has something on my father. That day my father forced me to marry you. Later he knelt down in front of me. He did that. I had no choice but to agree for the time being. Cheng Lingsu said, if I stay behind to marry you, I won't be able to go overseas. Moreover, I have to go out to do something. The biggest possibility is to enter the family's company and take away what she thinks is hers. But, Jiang Xiu wanted to say that she married him later. That might be another ridiculous conspiracy. Because the ending was that Cheng Lingran suddenly disappeared one day. Fake. Everything was fake. But in the end you still left. My father died. My mother died for love. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with pain. He had already suffered this pain, so it didn't hurt anymore. What he hurt was that Cheng Lingren's feelings for him were fake. However, Cheng Lingren's plot to kill him had made him understand that Cheng Lingran was a greedy and evil person. However, he thought that Cheng Lingran and Cheng Lingsu were in cahoots. Cheng Lingran knew that Jiang Xiu's weakness was snake blood. It was very likely that Cheng Lingsu told her. And Yi Bing was also one of Cheng Lingsu's people here. These two sisters were not good people, Jiang Xiu said. No matter what she did, she is dead now. Cheng Lingsu said, no, she is not dead. Her eyes flashed with determination and a bit of fear. The wheel of fate has decided everything. She and I are destined to be sisters. We are very similar but also very different. Jiang Xiu said, on Earth, I killed her with my own hands. Cheng Lingsu shook her head. She was not so easily killed. Moreover, with your cultivation at that time, have you forgotten that her corpse disappeared before your eyes? Jiang Xiu's expression froze. Her corpse? Weren't you the one who took it away? And the seal in the immortal martial continent's Lingxi pavilion? Weren't you the one who took it away? Cheng Lingsu said. Of course not. Why should I save her? The reason why she disappeared is because she has a power that exists in the void like me. Jiang Xiu frowned. Cheng Lingran is also a god emperor? Cheng Lingsu nodded. I just said that the wheel of fate has decided everything. We are destined to be sisters. We are destined to be sisters. We are very similar but also very different. Her words were always based on the logic of the great fate art. Jiang Xiu did not really understand. What happened to you two? How did you both become god emperors? Cheng Lingsu said. If you want to know, then follow me. After saying this, she turned and walked forward. Her skirt dragged on the ground behind her. The skirt was long and beautiful, supporting her noble temperament and elegance. Jiang Xiu did not think too much and followed her. Actually you. Cheng Lingsu realized that Jiang Xiu did not like following behind her. Instead, he came to her side. Back then, if you were not taken away by an elder from the Tianqing school and waited for your clansmen to come and pick you up, you would have already become a god emperor. Clansmen. Cheng Lingsu said. Yes, the Tianwen clan. There are many ways to make the Tianwen clan mature faster, as long as your bloodline is pure enough and ancient enough. And as expected, after you mature, you will become a divine emperor like us. Cheng Lingsu led Jiang Xiu to an ancient palace. It was indeed very old, and could even be said to be a bit shabby. However, Jiang Xiu felt that it was similar to the style of an ancient desert city on Earth. We're here. This is the place. As soon as Jiang Xiu entered, he was struck by a strange feeling. The surrounding walls were covered in Tianwen runes, more complete than the runes on Western Zhou Mountain. An ancient aura washed over him. How can this be? Jiang Xiu's mind was filled with questions. According to the story circulating in Western Zhou, after God Buzhou fell, a goddess appeared in the world. Following the goddess's arrival, she brought another world into that world, which later became the immortal martial continent. In terms of time, Cheng Lingsu did not seem to be a goddess. She was not that distant. Chapter 803. However, it could also be related to the Great Fate technique. Just like the current Earth, time and space were in chaos under the Great Fate technique. It could change fate and affect time, just like how the Great Fate technique allowed Jiang Xiu to return to his youth on Earth. After thinking about it, the possibility of Cheng Lingsu being the goddess was the highest. Only she had the ability to do so. However, she didn't dodge the blade just now. This caused ripples in Jiang Xiu's heart. If he was more ruthless and slashed, perhaps everything would be over. Perhaps there were still doubts in his heart. This was the real reason why he couldn't do it. Cheng Lingsu claimed to be a descendant of the Tianwen clan, and so did Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu was indeed a descendant of the Tianwen clan. However, the divine Dao runes on Jiang Xiu's body had already covered his entire body. He couldn't deny it even if he wanted to. However, Cheng Lingsu wasn't like that. When she raised her hand just now, she revealed her white wrist. It was very smooth and very clean. There was nothing on it. A person with no Tianwen symbol on her body actually claimed to be a descendant of the Tianwen clan? However, the scene in front of him in this ancient palace must be closely related to the Tianwen clan. Some things could be faked, but some things couldn't be faked. For example, the complete Tianwen talisman and the ancient aura of this palace. In fact, the goddess was related to the Tianwen clan. Jiang Xiu had already confirmed this. However, Cheng Lingsu bringing her here now didn't seem to have much meaning. It could only be confirmed in more detail that their bloodline was indeed related to the Tianwen clan. Back then, if his master didn't pass by Earth and took him away because he thought he was a good seedling, he might have been discovered by the Tianwen clan and taken to Gu Ting. He wouldn't have cultivated immortality first, but directly embarked on the path of divine cultivation. Perhaps he might have grown as fast as Cheng Lingsu. You wanted to tell me this? All of this couldn't prove that Cheng Lingsu wasn't the goddess. She was still a huge suspect. Do you see this totem? The totem on the wall that Cheng Lingsu was pointing at was actually the portrait of Jiang Xiu's god Buzhou in the immortal martial continent. As for the totem that Cheng Lingsu was referring to, it was a pitch-black ocean with lightning flashing and thunder rumbling. Two malevolent snakes coiled around a towering stone pillar. So what if I saw it? Cheng Lingsu turned her head to look at Jiang Xiu and said, "The ancient god of heaven's inquisition is our ancestor. We are all his descendants. Do you understand?" This question carried a hint of a test. Understand what? Cheng Lingsu said. Forget it if you don't understand. However, don't expect me to tell you. Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Jiang Xiu snorted in disdain. This sovereign has no interest in these things. Yes, the current Jiang Xiu was completely uninterested in whether he could make a breakthrough in his cultivation, or whether he could enter the mature stage of his divine body earlier. He only wanted to confirm who the goddess was. Revenge was what he desired the most right now. Then will you still kill me? Jiang Xiu didn't hesitate and blurted out almost without thinking, "Kill. You and Cheng Lingran. I will kill both of you. No one will be left alive." Cheng Lingsu's expression changed slightly, then she nodded dejectedly. "You don't believe me?" Jiang Xiu said. "I don't believe what anyone says. You look very smart, but why are you so stupid at such a crucial time?" Cheng Lingsu pointed at the totem of the ancient god of heaven's inquisition. "Two snakes coiled around me. My fate and my sister's fate are intertwined. I already said before that the wheel of fate has returned to its original trajectory. Why can't you understand? I am a goddess, and so is my sister." PFFF. Just as she was speaking, Cheng Lingsu's expression suddenly changed, becoming incomparably pale. In the end, she couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Her complexion became even more unsightly, but the blood on her lips was still very bright. "What did you say? Two goddesses?" Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed. Why would Cheng Lingsu vomit blood? Even if her body was weak after the great fate art, it shouldn't be like this. No, this was the backlash of the concealment ability. Wasn't this a disguised form of proof that Cheng Lingsu's words weren't false? "If you want to kill me, you can do it now." Jiang Xiu stared at her, but his heart was in a perilous situation. The goddess wasn't one person but two. In the end, who was the one trying to harm him? Or were both of them trying to harm him? His gaze turned cold. "You think I don't dare to kill you?" Her thoughts were in a complete mess. You killed me." Cheng Lingsu's expression turned ugly. Her pure white immortal robe and her noble status had all turned pale and illusory. Only she herself was real. She clutched her chest in pain, and then fell forward. Cheng Lingsu. The backlash of her revealing the heavenly fate art was extremely strong. In addition, her body hadn't recovered to begin with, so she actually fainted. At this moment, Cheng Lingsu truly had no power to resist. If Jiang Xiu wanted to kill her, it would indeed be very easy. At this time, in a certain place in ancient courtyard, a similarly peerless beauty stood. She was also wearing a pure white immortal robe. The hem of her skirt was very long, and there were two feathers on her head. If Jiang Xiu was here, he would be able to recognize that it was Cheng Lingran. She was Cheng Lingran, who had died to his hands back then. Ancestor, Jiang Xiu was called away by the Divine King. Yi Bing appeared behind Cheng Lingran. He is very convinced that Cheng Lingsu is the goddess. Cheng Lingran gazed at the distant horizon. Yes, he is very convinced, but he trusts women too much. He shouldn't have believed Cheng Lingsu. Cheng Lingsu risked the backlash from the heavenly divination to tell the minor repairs. There are actually two goddesses, her and me, both of us. Yi Bing's eyes lit up. If that's the case, then the Divine King must be very weak right now. Ancestor, you can go and kill him in one fell swoop. Cheng Lingran shook her head with a sad expression. This is the power of my little sister. She knows the minor repairs too well. If I go and kill her now, the minor repairs will definitely protect her, definitely. Maybe you don't know, but the minor repairs is already a divine king. His progress is too fast. But this kind of opportunity is really rare, Cheng Lingran said. Attacking now will only have the opposite effect. Her expression didn't look too good after saying this. I'm too tired, I need to rest. Yi Bing respectfully sent her back to her room. Cheng Lingsu. Jiang Xiu stiffly reached out to grab her soft back and anxiously called out. He couldn't take advantage of someone in a precarious situation. Plus, there were still some things he didn't fully understand. The servants outside saw the Divine King faint and quickly ran in. A few maids asked, "What happened to the Divine King?" He fainted on his own. One of them seemed to be the head of a servant. She reached out and took Cheng Lingsu from Jiang Xiu's arms. A few people beside her supported her and sent her inside. Quick, summon the immortal doctor. After they left, Jiang Xiu didn't leave. He still had some questions to ask Cheng Lingsu, but it seemed that Cheng Lingsu wouldn't wake up for a while. He was also affected by the power of heaven's mystery. However, if it was caused by death, the power of heaven's mystery wouldn't be as strong as Cheng Lingsu's. At that time, he seemed to have fainted as well, but he quickly gave up. On the other hand, Cheng Lingsu had told him everything, so the consequences would be more serious. His gaze was attracted by the Tianwen talisman on the wall and the totem of Buzhou God. As his thoughts slowly sank into it, he heard light footsteps. Jiang Xiu turned around and saw a white-haired man in white clothes. "You're Jiang Xiu?" Jiang Xiu looked at this unfamiliar man and was a little surprised. How did he know about him? "I'm the current patriarch of the Tianwen clan." Jiang Xiu saw the Tianwen talisman on his neck. He should be a member of the Tianwen clan. From the looks of it, the number of Tianwen clan members in ancient court shouldn't be too small. They should be the ones who brought Cheng Lingsu and Cheng Lingran here and nurtured them. "Yes, I am." That man surveyed Jiang Xiu from head to toe. "You have already entered the growth phase of your body. Not bad. Do you have any interest in heading to the blood pool? Over there, you will be able to fully awaken your Heavenly Inquisition bloodline, allowing your strength to increase greatly. In the future, the effects of your cultivation will also be stronger. Naturally, the purer your bloodline, the better the effects after entering the blood pool. However, once you enter the blood pool, you will fall into a deep sleep. Chapter 804. Deep Sleep? Jiang Xiu was originally very tempted. After all, he could awaken his bloodline. He was very curious if he could still increase his realm after entering the mature stage. If he could reach the level of an ancient god, then he could easily deal with Cheng Lingran and Cheng Lingsu. He could do whatever he wanted. However, if he were to fall into a deep slumber, he would inevitably have to think more. Although his god-sealing steel was entrusted to the void, if that almighty who mastered the god-sealing technique was killed, then he would definitely die too. Moreover, the appearance of this person who claimed to be the patriarch of the Tianwen clan was too strange. Perhaps this was all part of Cheng Lingsu's plan. Once Jiang Xiu fell into a deep sleep, then even if Cheng Lingsu was heavily injured, it would be easy for her to kill him. Could this be a trap? Jiang Xiu sized him up. "You recognized me as soon as you arrived. Could it be that you have heard of me? I have heard the Divine Emperor mention you before." The patriarch looked at Jiang Xiu with shining eyes. "You are very rare. You have not entered the mature stage, but you have already become a divine emperor. Once you enter the mature stage, your strength will be limitless. It is not impossible for you to become an ancient god. His gaze was fervent from the beginning to the end. How about I bring you to the blood pool? As for whether you want to go down or not, it is up to you. The blood pool was located in the depths of this ancient palace. According to the old man, this was the main bloodline of the Tianwen celestial race. Hence, the ancestral awakening blood pool was left behind. This was the greatest treasure of the Tianwen celestial race. Outsiders were not allowed to enter. Jiang Xiu could enter because he was also a member of the Tianwen clan. In their opinion, Jiang Xiu was also a member of their clan. Along the way, they passed by a few villages. The folklore was incomparably simple. They were all descendants of the Tianwen clan. More or less, they had runes of the Tianwen clan on their bodies. The adults were chatting while the children were running and playing. When they saw the elder walking over, they bowed and greeted. Patriarch. These people sized up Jiang Xiu curiously. Who is this person? Is he also from the Tianwen clan? It should be. Outsiders are not allowed to enter this place. In particular, a few children who were playing around widened their eyes and stared at Jiang Xiu, a stranger. A brave child ran over and asked, Lord Patriarch, who is this big brother? I've never seen him before. Will he be staying here in the future? The number of people from the Tianwen race had decreased significantly. Jiang Xiu glanced over and saw that there were only a few hundred people. If he counted all of them, there would be less than 1,000 people. Go, don't mess around here. Go soak in the blood pool, don't play here all day. The clan leader reprimanded the child. However, the child didn't seem to be afraid of him. He stuck out his tongue and made a face at the clan leader. It's too boring to soak in the blood pool all day. You want me to stay in there all day? Why don't I just accept my precepts? The clan leader was so angry that his eyebrows were raised. Just as he was about to reprimand the child had already escaped. The clan leader could only helplessly shake his head and explain to Jiang Xiu, don't laugh at us. Our clan is too small. Every child is our treasure. Some have spoiled them too much. That's why they are a little too presumptuous. Jiang Xiu's face was indifferent and expressionless, but in his heart, he liked this place very much. This place made him feel very calm, very free, very comfortable, and very comfortable. How to say it, it felt like he had returned home. This was a feeling that he hadn't felt for a long time. It was a feeling that he had left behind when he was young. Ever since his father's accident, his family had been torn apart. He longed for this feeling very much. This is our clan's land. The surroundings were very quiet. Occasionally, the sound of birds chirping could be heard. It was peaceful and peaceful. If we continue forward, we will reach the blood pool. The clan leader stopped and looked at Jiang Xiu. There aren't many members of the Tianwen clan left. It's rare for even one of them to awaken. For someone like you to have such an ancient bloodline. I have only seen it from Lord Shenhuang and the others. It's too precious. Jiang Xiu, you really have a chance to completely revert to your ancestry. Jiang Xiu remained silent. I will bring you in to take a look. It seemed that the clan leader really treated Jiang Xiu as one of his own. Jiang Xiu also knew a little about the Protoss. The ancient bloodline was the foundation of a Protoss's strength. Almost every Protoss had an ancestral blood pool. This was the foundation of their clan. It was much more important than their lives. If the clan leader didn't treat Jiang Xiu as one of his own, he definitely wouldn't have brought him in. It's fine to take a look. In the canyon where the blood pool was located, the sky was blue and the mountains were like dragons coiling around the ground. The sound of the blood pool bubbling could be heard. Everywhere they passed, there were small blood pools in the rocks. Some had people in them, while others didn't. These blood pools are based on the ancient bloodline. The older the bloodline, the closer the pool is to the center. The blood in the pool is also older. Jiang Xiu followed the clan leader all the way to the highest blood pool in the innermost area. This blood pool was different from the others. There were wisps of blood qi floating in the air, and there was a layer of bright red light covering the outside. Upon arriving here, Jiang Xiu felt a strong thirst for blood. It was like a primary school student who was addicted to playing games. He couldn't control himself and wanted to go in. This is the ancestral blood pool. You can go in and give it a try. If you don't want to, you can come out again. Jiang Xiu was very willing to accept this suggestion. There was no harm in giving it a try. Jiang Xiu immediately took off his robe. His body exuded the hazy silver luster of the heaven's question talisman, and he leaped into the air. He said, "This defensive array? Don't worry, this defensive array won't harm you." Before he could finish speaking, Jiang Xiu's entire body had already fallen into it. This feeling was like doing something embarrassing. It was very satisfying. All the pores on his body seemed to have been electrocuted, rushing straight to his head. "How can this be?" The clan leader said, "This is like when you are hungry and in front of delicious food. It's also like when you want to do that thing. Your thirst for the blood of the Tianwen race is a strong desire in your body. Once you achieve it, of course it will be wonderful." Jiang Xiu's entire body was immersed in it. He felt like he was going to ascend to the heavens. Flying in the sky, he felt very good. Oh right, this ancestral blood pool. Was it left behind by the ancestors? The clan leader shook his head and said, "No, it's not." After a moment of pleasure, Jiang Xiu felt like he was done being embarrassed. A strong sense of drowsiness came over him. He knew in his heart that if this continued, he would fall into a deep sleep. At the same time, a certain kind of power in his body was awakening. Then where did it come from? The clan leader saw Jiang Xiu's eyes become hazy and said, "The blood of an emperor has long dried up. This blood is all from the divine emperor. She put it out bit by bit every day." Jiang Xiu was stunned. "This blood is all from Lingsu." Yes. At this moment, although Jiang Xiu felt very good and enjoyed doing something embarrassing, his mood was a little strange. The great array outside is used to defend against others. You're the only exception. Jiang Xiu's eyelids were very heavy, very heavy. The clan leader's voice sounded like it came from a dream. He was already half asleep and half awake. He really wanted to wake up, but no matter how tenacious his consciousness was, he couldn't escape the characteristics of his race. He was like a snake that was about to hibernate. His body was completely out of control. He could only ask vaguely, "Why am I an exception? Aren't all great arrays the same?" If there were no exceptions, great arrays were usually uniform. After asking this question, Jiang Xiu's eyelids completely closed. Then his body slowly fell to the side. When the clan leader saw him like this, a sinister smile appeared on his face. This was the smile of a person who had succeeded in his evil scheme. There were many kinds of smiles, but this kind of smile was definitely not a good one. Anyone who saw this kind of smile must be wary of what he said at that time. Of course it's not the same. Because this great array, this blood pool, was prepared for you. Jiang Xiu had already heard his words. At this moment he was completely in a state of deep sleep. However, his body was also constantly absorbing the power of the blood, triggering the awakening of his own blood cells. Of course, the blood of an emperor was not as powerful as the blood of an ancient god. However, the blood of a mature emperor was enough to stimulate Jiang Xiu's divine body to enter the mature period. This could greatly reduce the time it took for Jiang Xiu to enter the mature period. However, at this moment he was unconscious and had no ability to protect himself. Chapter 805. In fact, Jiang Xiu was also a shrewd person. He knew that he would not be able to resist the temptation, so he had already taken out the God Sealing Monument and left a trace of his divine sense inside. If there were any strange movements, the God Sealing Monument should be able to launch a life-saving blow. As for how much damage it would cause to the opponent, that was unknown. If he could kill the opponent in one blow, then Jiang Xiu would have a chance to live. If he couldn't, then this deep sleep would be eternal sleep. The blood in the ancestral blood pool was boiling. This was all Lingsu's blood. No matter who it was, blood was extremely precious. Even if they had reached the divine emperor realm, if she bled every day, it would definitely have a great impact on her body. Even so, Lingsu still filled up such a large blood pool. This was simply unimaginable. The blood in Jiang Xiu's body was constantly surging. His blood cells were sublimated and constantly awakened, blooming with unparalleled power. For many races, including ordinary humans and Protoss, when in deep sleep, their brains would lose their consciousness, but their bodies would operate faster. The effect could be described as a qualitative change, completely different from when they were awake. Deep sleep was a very mysterious state. When in a state of extreme exhaustion, the recovery from sleep could not be compared to no amount of rest. At this moment, Jiang Xiu's body was like this. He was rapidly growing at an astonishing speed. This was also the reason why Protoss viewed the blood pool as a supreme treasure. Perhaps this speed was 10 times, dozens of times, or even 100 times faster than when he was awake. This was only because of the person and the race. The difference between people was huge, and the difference between divine cultivators was also huge. In the blood pool, Jiang Xiu's body constantly emitted a silver light. What flowed in this light was not the Heaven's Inquisition talisman, but extremely mysterious characters. No, it shouldn't be considered a problem. It was just a very abstract and strange pattern. Moreover, it was constantly changing, and it was impossible to understand. However, these strange and small patterns showed the mysteries of heaven and earth that could not be seen through. At the same time, Jiang Xiu's body was rapidly growing. Pop pop, pop pop pop. The blood in the blood pool constantly emitted traces of light. In the village outside the blood pool, the mischievous child from before was playing with his friends. Although they were young, they were all heavenly deities. For ordinary god cultivators, it would take a lot of effort for them to reach the heavenly god level. But for them, the heavenly god level was something they were born with. After they were born, their race awakened, and they became heavenly gods immediately. When they ran, there was light. When they were angry and fought, their destructive power was also very shocking. Houses and trees were like tofu in front of them. However, every time he was naughty, he would be taught a lesson by his elders. Demao, what are we playing today? It's so boring. A round child fell to the ground with his arms and legs spread out. His bulging belly rippled like a water balloon. His nose was filled with the fragrance of soil and grass. What are we playing? How am I supposed to know? The mischievous boy with big eyes also sat down beside him, very bored, with a weed in his mouth. Although they were all heavenly gods, in this isolated village, there was too little entertainment. They didn't even have a bird or cricket fight, and there were only a few playmates. Who was that person just now? I saw the chief bring him to the blood pool. The fat man said. I think he's very powerful. The big-eyed boy said. The fat man sat up. How do you know he's very powerful? Feeling. The big-eyed boy said confidently. Did you see the chief's attitude towards him? He even let him walk in front. If he wasn't powerful, the chief wouldn't be so polite to him. What you said makes sense. What do you mean makes sense? It's obviously very reasonable. The big-eyed boy stood up and said excitedly, Little Fatty, why don't we go to the blood pool to play? Little Fatty shook his head like a rattledrum. No. If we get caught, we'll have to soak in the blood pool. That's even more boring than being bored. I think he might have gone into the blood pool. Let's go and tease him. That's not good, right? The big-eyed kid called Demao said disdainfully. Coward, are you going or not? If you're not going, then I'm going. After that, he didn't even look back and really strode forward. Hey Demao, wait for me. Little Fatty climbed up from the ground and quickly chased after him. The unconscious Chengling Su had already been brought back to her palace, and the most outstanding immortal doctor of ancient Hall came to diagnose her. She didn't have any fatal injuries, and it was all exhaustion. Although it wasn't fatal, it would make her very weak. First it was the great fate art, and now it was the heavens will concealment. It's nothing serious. She's just too weak, which is why she fainted. The immortal doctor said after the diagnosis. Prepare some spiritual herbs for the divine emperor. Slowly nourish her, and she should get better. However, at this moment, a figure flashed outside the palace, and an image appeared in the void outside the palace. Then, it landed on the ground and walked over unhurriedly. She was very similar to Chengling Su, who was lying on the bed. Suddenly, Chengling Su opened her eyes. Years of vigilance allowed her to sense danger. She turned around and saw Chengling ran. She stood up. It's been a long time. Chung Ling-su's voice was very calm. Yes, it's been a long time. A few hundred years, or a few thousand years. Chung Lingren's voice was as gentle as ever, and her temperament was as graceful as ever. Chung Ling-su's face was also very calm. What? You're not going to show yourself? You suddenly appeared because you found a way to deal with me? Chung Lingran said. You've already fainted on the bed, and you need the immortal doctor to save you. Do you still need me to find a way to deal with you? You can just do it. Chung Ling-su didn't panic in the slightest. She actually took a few steps forward, and the maid behind her held up her long skirt. Your situation isn't much better. Moreover, Jiang Xiu is here. He's already a divine emperor. Do you think he'll let you kill me? The two sisters seemed calm, but dark clouds were gathering above the ancient court. Lightning flashed, and a violent battle was about to descend. Chung Lingren's expression was calm. It's shocking that he could become a divine emperor so quickly. Unfortunately, I'm afraid he won't be able to interfere in our matters. Chung Ling-su was startled. Chung Lingran suddenly appeared. With her personality, she wouldn't do this if she wasn't confident. She asked the person beside her softly, "Where's Jiang Xiu?" The person beside her replied, "Tianwen clan leader took him to the blood pool." Boom. Chung Ling-su's mind exploded, and her face turned even paler. She looked at the person beside her in disbelief. The latter was very confused and frightened. He didn't know why the divine emperor had such a big reaction. No, that's impossible. Chung Lingran said. You don't believe me? Why don't you find Tianwen clan leader and ask him? See what he'll say. Chung Ling-su's heart sank. The Chung Lingran in front of her was still the same as before. She looked soft and gentle, but her every move could take your life. She was like a needle in silk. Divine Emperor, should I call Tianwen clan leader over? Before she could finish her sentence, the Tianwen clan leader had already walked into the hall. His expression was very natural, and there wasn't much change in his expression. Chung Ling-su's eyes revealed great disappointment as she asked, "Why?" Tianwen clan leader was originally very calm, but in the end, he revealed an ashamed expression. After all, Chung Ling-su had treated him well. For the Tianwen clan, the most important thing is to continue the bloodline. This is what I can do. As for the two of you, it doesn't matter to us who is the master of the ancient court. Chung Ling-su's eyes revealed shock and confusion. In the end, it turned into helplessness and anger. What you're doing will only bring destruction to everything. Chung Lingran interrupted. The Tianwen clan will never be destroyed. Only you and the minor repairs will be destroyed. You shouldn't exist. Chapter 806. Within the ancient court, the divine emperor Chung Ling-su stood tall and straight. Her gaze was resolute. Other than her slightly pale face, no one could imagine the danger she was in. If I fight to the death, you might not be able to gain any advantage. Chung Lingran shook her head lightly. You don't have to scare me. After you used the great fate technique last time, you were already like a lamp that had run out of oil. Your condition is much worse than mine. Chung Ling-su's eyes sparkled as she looked at Chung Lingran. Chung Lingran had a moving smile on her face. The two were too familiar with each other, and were testing each other's strength. Chung Lingran said, "You've really grown up. You're no longer the willful little girl from before. You were betrayed by the person you trusted the most, but your expression didn't change at all. Even I have to admire your foundation." Lord Patriarch, did the minor repairs go down to the blood pool? Tianwen Patriarch replied, "Yes. I saw him go down with my own eyes. Furthermore, I saw him fall into a deep sleep. If there were no accidents, he wouldn't have woken up so soon." You heard that? Chung Lingran said. Do you think I'm lying to you? That can't be. Tianwen Patriarch continued. I've already told Jiang Xiu beforehand that the Divine Emperor put in a little bit of blood every day, accumulating it bit by bit. You even set up a defensive formation outside that only he can break. If there were any accidents, then he would definitely think that it was the Divine Emperor who did it. Chung Ling-su's expression finally changed. This time, I'll see how you use the Great Fate technique to turn the wheel of fate. Chung Lingren's face revealed a rare trace of fierceness. Her killing intent had already leaked out. Chung Lingsu suddenly smiled. Her smile was as beautiful as a flower, and her eyes regained their vigor. Sister, are you really confident that you can win against me? You. Chung Lingren's expression changed because she felt Chung Lingsu's aura suddenly and inexplicably become stronger. It was so strong that it was close to her peak level. What happened? Chung Lingsu laughed in a relaxed manner. I've already mastered the Great Fate art. Although I'll lose half my life after using it once, it's been so long. How can my body not recover? I was too competitive in the past, but I always suffered at your hands every time. This time, I've learned to be smart. I pretended to be weak. Sister, you don't think that my nature will never change, do you? Chung Lingren's face turned completely pale. That's right. I don't want to change and I won't change. But I can still accept being wronged once. Chung Lingsu's expression became very relaxed. Her whole body was like a spring breeze. Dazzling light flowed out of her body. Her whole person was incomparably holy, and even the heaven and earth became holy. Do you still have the confidence to kill me now? After a while, Chung Lingren said unwillingly, You lied to me. Humph. Do you think you've won? We'll only know who's the victor after we fight. Boom. Chung Lingren opened her hands. Her whole body emitted a silver light. Behind her, the light condensed like a hurricane. A gust of wind shook, and a sparkling and translucent light wing formed on her back. The wingspan was more than 10 meters. Buzz! With a flap of the wings, she instantly streaked across the misty sky like a shooting star. Ha! Chung Lingsu shouted. Her back shook violently, and a pair of light wings also appeared. She had already turned into a stream of light and chased after her. The two god kings in the sky fought. Their super-fast speed caused the void to vibrate and collide with each other. Loud bangs were heard, and the space was blasted apart. Apart from the Great Fate art, you're inferior to me in every aspect. Even your Great Fate art can only affect those below the God King realm. Chung Lingren said as she flew ahead. Then why are you running? Who said I'm running? I just don't want to destroy Ancient Court's palace because of the battle. All right, she hadn't even become the master of Ancient Court, but she was already worrying for it. Many years ago, the two of them showed their talents in Ancient Court. They both had the top bloodline of ancient god Tianwen. Their talents and cultivation were similar, and they were both goddesses. On a certain day, when Ancient Court's predecessor was nearing the end of his lifespan, he called the two of them to the main hall. He wanted to pass on the throne. At that time, everyone thought that it would be Chung Lingren. Her sister was tolerant and gentle. Moreover, she had already interfered in various matters of Ancient Court. She was deeply supported and liked by various figures. On the other hand, Chung Lingsu was also a talented girl. Her personality was a bit more lively, and she was a bit unruly. In addition, she was a bit playful. Although she was diligent in cultivation, she didn't like to care about the matters of Ancient Court. However, the successor announced by the Ancient Court's emperor before his death exceeded everyone's expectations. Of course, it also exceeded the expectations of Chung Lingren, who was determined to obtain the throne. He passed the throne to Chung Lingsu, who was a bit playful and didn't like to do anything. Why? There's no reason. One could imagine Chung Lingren's mood at that time. She was someone who could kill people for the sake of family property on earth. How much did she yearn for the throne? She was cautious and conscientious and did everything perfectly for Ancient Court, but in the end, it was all thanks to Chung Lingsu. She couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. Because you are a hypocrite. Chung Lingren's gaze gradually became cold, ruthless, and sinister. No one can take away what belongs to me. At this time in Tianwen village, two children who were only 6 or 7 years old were laughing and playing with each other as they walked towards the blood pool. When they reached the edge of the blood pool, they found that the blood pool was exceptionally quiet today. Even the guards were not there. Just in case, the Tianwen village's leader would send someone from the Divine King to send these people away. They weren't from the Tianwen village, so they couldn't enter the blood pool. This was a restriction set by the previous Divine King, so it was absolutely impossible to break. There's no one. Then we can go in. The two hid behind a rock. After making sure that there was no one inside, they stuck half of their bodies out. Demao, who had big eyes, was very agile. I'll go first, you stay behind. This was the method they often used to deal with the elders in the village. They had already formed a tacit understanding, but today this tacit understanding was useless. There was really no one inside. Come out, it's safe. Little Fatty was still conservative. He waited for a while before coming out from behind the rock. His round head was very cute. That's strange. Why is there no one today? That was exactly what they wanted. It's good that there's no one here. Let's go find that newcomer. Demao took the lead and walked in. They passed through one blood pool after another, searching as they walked, but they didn't find him. I guessed right, that person should be very powerful. I didn't see him in the Divine King's blood pool. Then, Little Fatty's gaze also fell on the blood pool at the highest point. He's in the Divine Emperor pool. My goodness, he's really powerful. No wonder the chief is so respectful to him. The two had already climbed to the highest point and stood outside the red light circle. They saw Jiang Xiu lying inside, his body emitting a dazzling silver light. He's really inside. There's a light shield outside the ancestral blood pool. The last time I came here, I was in so much pain when I touched it. Then how do we go in? Little Fatty was very troubled. Demao was more cunning. He said, Little Fatty, you have a lot of meat. Don't be afraid. Charge in with all your strength and you'll definitely be able to break the shield. Then we'll catch him and hang him at the entrance of the village. Then, we'll be very impressive. The lords will definitely ask around to find out who did this. This person is too powerful. Even the Lord Patriarch has to be respectful to him. Do you think those lords will still dare to shout at us in the future and force us to either cultivate or soak in blood pools all day long? Little Fatty was also fascinated. Definitely not. Then what are we waiting for? Charge. Demao took a step back and said, I've given you such a difficult task. Don't disappoint me. Charge with all your strength. I'll cover you from behind. Little Fatty was often tricked by Demao. Although he knew that he was being tricked many times, he still did as he was told. He still felt that Demao was very loyal. He nodded his head vigorously and said, Okay. Then his face darkened and he frowned. He revealed a very serious expression and charged towards the light shield. With a miserable cry, he rushed over without any hindrance, and even fell into the blood pool head first. What was going on? You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.